hello. I am ready.
Good. So we are live, and someone decided to try and ruin our ears.
Oh, fuck's sake. This Canadian.
Jesus.
What's wrong now?
No manners.
Yeah, we all good. We've stopped flapping with our headpieces, our microphones. We all ready to roll. I can't believe I have to deal with these amateurs, really. It's a disgrace.
What are you talking about me? What are you talking about me? I mean, I've been ready since this morning.
If it makes you feel better, no one's listening, so.
Well, let's go then. So, hello and welcome to another episode of the wonderful Fandome. We're like a London bus this week. You get one show, now we're on two. So we've had a, New Year's resolution of doing something new, and that will die by the end of the week.
Every week. Oh, God.
And this week's episode, or today's episode, is going to be our top 10 of last year, the year 2019, even though a few films I saw on IMDb said 2018, but I'm not here to shame anybody. It'll be nice to get a bit more insight on a couple of these films, so that's always my favourite part of doing this show, especially last year's, where me and Josh did this show twice, and I got to change my list twice because I just watched all the films you recommended.
You didn't even do a list. No. It was just me flapping my gums.
So I actually do have a list this week, and we're joined by another person. Matt, introduce yourself.
Bonjour. Hello, it's Matt from Canada again. Fresh off the Star Wars podcast.
And he only joined in halfway through that film, disgrace. And my usual...
Maybe a shorter podcast, possibly.
Yeah. We're aiming for a solid lean hour, but you never know. And I'm also joined by my... I don't know what to call him. I call him a co-host, and he whinges, even though he's on nearly every bloody show. But we're joined by Josh.
Yeah, hello. Hello, everybody.
He's saying
guest here.
Hey, he keeps saying guest, but probably... Are you still a guest after 100 shows?
Yeah, I'm not welcome yet. I haven't earned the right of host. I used to be a host. I lost that privilege, and I feel like I need to earn it back.
Maybe
1,000.
We'll call him a parasite.
Yeah, that's very fitting.
Right then. So we're gonna go in order from 10 to 1, and first up is Matt with your number 10 pick of the year.
My number 10 pick of the year is a Netflix joint, The King, directed by David Michôd, starring Timothy Chalamet, Joel Edgerton, who also co-wrote it. Robert Pattinson's in there as well. Basically, for those who don't know, quickly, it's the story of a young Henry V's rise to power, and it culminates in the Battle of Agincourt, which is, I'm sure MJ will tell you, or any Brit worth his salt with their knowledge of history, that it's one of the biggest and most famous battles in British military history. It's based off of a selection of Shakespeare's plays in the Henriade. This movie is extremely well acted. I think it's one of the best acted movies I've seen this year, even though it's pretty low on my list. I think particularly the performance of Timothy Chalamet and Robert Pattinson deserve particular praise here. It's a very rising up sort of story of someone who is the son of an unworthy king on the throne coming up. Pretty run-of-the-mill story in that sense, although it is based in reality, and I thought the end and the performances brought this into my top 10 this year. Did you guys see this one?
I'm just going to hop in here before Josh. This is also on my list.
Excellent.
We're at number 10 as well?
Nope. It's a bit higher up than that. Okay. So
great.
Okay.
I will say when it is, but I'm just going to do my review here of it because Matt's exciting tones nailed it for me. So yeah,
excited tones.
I watched this film and I had no clue about it. Like Matt was talking about the Battle of Agincourt, and I was like, "Oh wow, so this is it." And I watched it, and I was disappointed by the end because it's got such a realistic tone with the details that I thought it was all pretty much real. But as Matt said, it's based off some Shakespeare stuff. And one of the biggest disappointments for me was, what's his name, Matt? The guy who wrote it. He's really...
David Mishra.
Well, Joel Edgerton was co-writer. I'd have
That's
to
the
look
one.
into the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Edgerton's character is a fictional character, and I was so disappointed. But I gotta... For me, the standout was Edgerton, because he's the writer or co-writer, as you want to say, but he also does a tremendous performance. To me, he was very reminiscent of... what's his bloody name? He plays Beowulf in the CGI film, the voice.
Ray Winstone.
Jesus.
That guy, he reminded me so much of Ray Winston. It's like, oh, if Ray Winston wasn't available, just go get Joel Edgerton, because he was phenomenal, in my opinion. Just probably one of the most unsung performances of the year. I would be curious how many people actually saw this film, because
That's what I was wondering.
it had a good cast for what it was, and it looked like an expensive film. The battle scenes were well done. I liked how you actually saw people couldn't just keep fighting in heavy armor.
Yeah, it was. I liked how it was grounded in this reality of, guys aren't swinging axes and swords for literally even 30 minutes. It's what it would be. People are being bogged down in mud.
Yeah.
People are drowning in mud. People aren't. There are no super soldiers taking out. Even the the antagonist, Robert Pattinson, at the end. That was sort of one of the disappointments for me. But also one of the highlights at the same time, because I thought his end was fitting for what he ended up being. No spoilers here, obviously, but very grounded in reality. The siege of what a siege would be. Castles don't give up in a day after being under siege. They give up after months and weeks of being, like I said, under siege, under bombardment of trebuchets and economic blockades of food and things. And I love that. I cannot stress enough, though, if it wasn't for another movie this year, Robert Pattinson's performance in this movie, although brief, which is the thing that sort of was against this movie, I wish I wanted more of him in this movie. More and more of him in this. It's absolutely amazing, and for how little screen time he has, he makes an impact in this movie. And I'm still thinking about his performance.
I thought his screen time was adequate because the focus wasn't him.
It wasn't.
But I did enjoy, like, when he rocks up, I was like, oh, damn, this guy's getting around this year, isn't he?
He is. Him and a couple other guys we'll get into later, but when he first opened his mouth in this movie, I was very surprised from what I heard. And I think he's really growing into something that we're going to start to appreciate more and more as the years go on based on this year's performance. But this one was the first one I had seen him in, and it was off to a good start. So, number 10 for me, and I'm curious to see where you put it.
Yep, so I'm going to go with my number 10, and then we'll get to Josh's in a second. So my number 10, this will be an interesting one to see a couple of opinions. But my number 10 was actually Avengers Endgame.
Oh, man.
It was a toss-up between this and Nightingale. This won over for me because the way I do, like, my favourite films, it is literally my favourite films. It's not, oh, this is the best made. I just find it hard to quantify that. But for me, this was a massive payoff. It was a great experience at the cinema. Now, this comes with, like, an asterisk next to it. I'm not sure how often I would rewatch this film. So it went to the cinema, loved it. But I have no urge to want to rewatch this over and over. I'll watch scenes of it, for sure, because I really enjoy the hell out of a lot of the scenes. And I got like goosebumps at certain parts of the film. Have you saw the film, Matt, or?
I saw it. I didn't see it in theaters though.
Oh wow!
I didn't. I probably should have. That probably would have been the arena to see that in.
Yeah,
I do agree with you on rewatchability as well.
It was a fun payoff for a lot of elements for me. Sad to see that everyone pretty much gets brought back, which was inevitable because Marvel wasn't going to shit can a bunch of franchises. That would have been a bold move though. But yeah, that was my number 10. You've got any thoughts on Endgame, Josh?
I mean, it's not as good as Infinity War, for instance. I think it's... I don't actually hate the pick. I think for what it is, I think it was actually quite successful in that, like, it actually did feel like a successful finale that didn't... Like, a lot of finales lately, like TV show finales or movie franchise finales, never seem to stick the landing, whereas this did. Sure, it's not perfect. There are things in it that are a bit baggy and that don't work and don't make sense, but the resolution for the major characters, I think, is terrific. There's a lot of great fan moments. For me, I think one of my favorite movie moments of the year was Cap catching the hammer. That made me so happy. But yeah, I think it's a pretty good, for what it is. It's a good choice, and I understand, because in a lot of the same ways that you compile your list, I try and factor that into my list of, like, I don't, if this was what I consider the best films of the year, my list would be very different. Avengers Endgame, I think, is a solid choice, and yeah, like I said, a good fitting finale to a lot of these characters.
Yeah, I mean, it had
and
a
also
lot...
just a quick thing on Matt's choice of the King. I haven't seen it, but it's made if it's on both your lists, it's also on another close friend of mine's list, so I will watch it this week.
Highly recommend it.
You should watch it, Josh. It's really good.
I'm a big fan of him. I love The Rover and I love Animal Kingdom, so I will check his movie out.
Right.
MJ, but one thing about Endgame, I think that I sort of am on the same page as Josh a little bit with the Infinity War comparison.
Yeah.
Thanos is front and center in a sense, but it's not as much Thanos as we got in Infinity War with his ethos, with his... he's more of a character that is there to be begotten at the start and returns at the end to be defeated, whereas Infinity War, I thought that Thanos was unquestionably one of the best villains in the superhero cinematic universe, DC or Marvel, in the past 5 or 6 years. Josh left. But I did wish we had a little bit more of him in Endgame. But nevertheless, I did enjoy that movie. I mean, balancing 30 characters, making that screen time work, making it a fitting resolution, there are feels at the end, there's no question, even if the Marvel fatigue has started setting in for me at this point. By the time I'd seen this, it overcame that. It was a good movie.
See, I feel for me, this film is pretty much, I wouldn't say killed, but it's killed it for me, the kind of Marvel films, because I feel like I've got no interest in seeing any more of them. Because when we say, oh, it's the end of like X amount of films, I was like, yeah, and how many of those films were good? How many did I enjoy? Probably a handful.
You know what's funny? We were talking about Star Wars last week.
Yeah.
But I think I gave a couple more... I didn't say this in the podcast, but I'm continually thinking about that movie, and it applies to this. I think I gave Rise of Skywalker points because it was the end of an era, and I was thanking it for that.
Yeah.
Whereas this one is the same thing. It's sort of putting a bookend on the end of Endgame, or the end of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the original phases, and I'm happy that it came, maybe, in a sense, and tied it up maybe not quickly, but effectively.
And over to Josh for his number 10.
Okay. My number 10, sorry. Keep dropping out here, MJ. I think I'm being sabotaged by somebody on the line. My number 10, if I'm being honest, I have a co-number 10, but MJ wouldn't let me have a tie, and also it would piss off Andrew because it would be an animated film that would be in the tie, and that would be Dragon Ball Super Broly, which is the best cinema experience I had all year. It was amazing, but I'm not going to put any other animated films on my list. But that would have made the list if I was. But my actual number 10, as you can see on the screen, and MJ spoiled it, is Starfish. Which is, I believe, writer-director A.T. White's directorial debut. It's a sci-fi horror film.
Okay.
It's kind of more of like, it does have sci-fi horror elements, but it's more of a character study about depression and grief, which doesn't sound overly fun, and it's not a very fun movie to watch, but it's just real, and it's just very, I thought, creative and interesting, and for a first-time film, you could see that this guy was trying different things out, and I think he's a very creative and interesting guy. This guy wrote, directed, produced the film, he scored the film, and he co-edited it, so he really is like
John Carpenter.
like it's his film. I mean, kind of. Like, it's actually quite...
It's almost like Primer.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I was about to say that, like, it's got a lot of... You look at the sci-fi elements of it, and it would remind you of stuff like Cloverfield or Stranger Things, but tonally, it's more in line with something like Primer or Annihilation from last year.
The vision and execution of one guy. You know.
Well, it's very... Yeah, the vision, and also the execution, and it's about the ideas, and it really does. I've never seen a film get across, especially in the first 20 or so minutes, get across what it's like to have depression. I mean, I've dealt with it before. I deal with it all the time. But this was just excellent, and the whole theme, the messages of the plot, which, I mean, there's no point really getting much into the plot, other than saying it's about a girl whose we're led to believe it's her best friend who died, and she goes back to this town for the funeral, and this best friend left her these tapes that could potentially save the world. These mixtapes.
Wow.
And it's kind of use that element of it as a person trying to find purpose after a loss and trying to grieve, and you try and find things to get you out of bed in the morning and stuff like that. So it's quite interesting. It goes full meta at a certain point, like it breaks the fourth wall, and there's an anime sequence that's really interesting. One.
He's got the worst connection, this guy. I swear.
Well,
have you seen this, MJ? Because I haven't.
I haven't either. I was about to ask you, Matt, if you'd seen it, because the way he's describing it's like, oh yeah, this sounds good. Shut up talking about it. I want to watch this. Without more spoilers.
Well, I haven't. Honestly, I haven't. I won't lie. I mean, if it's not streamable and it's only in theaters, it's tough for me.
Yeah.
I'm in a pretty rural area, and I have maybe broken some laws this week with that. But I have heard of this movie. I haven't gotten any further than some pretty basic reviews that have seemed to have been positive. So I'm probably going to look forward to this one. If it's in Josh's top 10, it's definitely worth a listen.
The other thing I'd like to mention on this one is Virginia Gardner, who I haven't really seen her in other things. Apparently she's done some like TV shows. I think she gives one of the best performances of the year. She's absolutely phenomenal. I was genuinely shocked because she looks like a CW actress.
Okay.
And but she's fantastic. If I had my vote, she'd get a nomination for Best Actress because a lot of the time she's bouncing off nothing. She's terrific. She's not my pick for Best Actress, but she'd get a nomination. She's fantastic.
Fair enough.
Do we know her from anything else?
I couldn't tell you. I think she's done some stuff on TV. But
I was going to say, she's going to be on the CW channel now, isn't she? It's like more than just a CW actress. Okay, so we're going to go back to you, Matt, now for your number 9. Hit me with it.
Number 9, another Netflix joint, Marriage Story. I'm not going to go too in depth in this because this is getting sunshine blown up its ass from everyone else. but there's no denying.
Jesus.
There's no denying this movie has heart. I don't know if it's the parent in me of a young child and with a partner every day trying to make that work, but this movie really is. It got me in the feels watching this one. It basically tells a story, for those who don't know, quickly. To a couple immediately at the start of the film is having marital problems, divorce ensues, and the movie mostly concentrates, which I found most fascinating about it, the actual in and outs of how a divorce settlement is come to. There have been movies in the past that dealt with that, but not as interestingly as this, or as in depth as this. Going to find lawyers, coming up with your argument, trying to make that argument more convincing to a judge than your partners or your ex-partners with their lawyer. And then, of course, the acting in this movie. It's been said 1,000 times before, but Adam Driver absolutely knocks it out of the park. The nominations are well deserved.
He's phenomenal.
He's absolutely incredible actor. I don't think I need to go any more into this. It's a movie with incredible heart, and if you are someone that wants to give a movie with that sort of tone a chance, this one won't let you down. Marriage Story, number 9 for me.
It's one of my honorable mentions. If this was a best film list, it'd definitely be in the contention of top 10 for me. I think Adam Driver. The only thing that keeps it out of it for me is I felt the film was a little imbalanced, surprisingly, in that, I don't know if it was just me, but I felt myself just being like, Adam Driver's character was much more in the right.
I can agree with that. I can agree with that. I definitely.
I don't know if that's just because we're men.
Yeah,
but
possibly.
I was going to ask that because this film also made it onto my top 10 list. So Matt's just killing all my fucking hype train here.
You might as well get your review out of the way now.
Yep, that's what I'm going to do.
Let me quickly say though.
Whoa. Is this on your top 10 list? No, shut up.
No, but
it's my turn.
No, I'm talking. Hey, calm down, MJ. I just want to say one thing, and then you can go on for however long you want. That the culmination of the fight scene is that it made me cry. Like, that's how good Adam Driver is in that movie. Like, it made you like. It made me, because I've been in those relationships where you have those fights and those moments where you say something so awful that you immediately regret it. Or you feel that, like, you may not even say it, but like you feel like saying that, or you feel that emotion of wanting a person to die or whatever, and it breaks you up inside. And the way he delivers it was tremendous. I think if he won Best Actor this year, I think it'd be well deserved. He's awesome.
See,
go ahead, MJ, you bitch.
Hey, for a guy who says he's always the guest, he's certainly hosting. But so.
I keep things on track.
Onto Marriage Story. Again, I think Matt pretty much summed it all up. I did want to get... In the fandom, I think we're sorely missing a female point of view because as a male, I haven't gone through a divorce, but I have gone through like some bitter stuff. And I could totally understand where my boy Adam Driver is coming from. It gets... You think you're on good terms, but then things start to go fragile, and then you're advised to go one way, and you think, oh, is this the best thing to do? And then you see the other side arming up. It's like, fuck this, man. We're going to go to nuclear annihilation here.
For me, I learned a lot about that. It's not about coming to a compromise. It's about there's one side can win, one side can't, and you have to throw those feelings aside, and you have to arm up, as you said. It's fascinating that way.
And it was interesting.
This poster you got on it, MJ. This is actually a terrific poster.
Yeah, I thought the poster is great. But wait, like if you look at this poster, you're like, oh, it captures a lot of what's in that film. And again, it was just a really enjoyable film. It was really powerful. Like most of my top 10, I just have to thank Josh for because he just seems to see a lot of films, and I'll go check him out. But I also need to give some props to Netflix for buying these films, distributing them. Would I have seen this in cinema? Unlikely, unless Josh gave it an absolute phenomenal review. Now, I'm not sure if this is because of, I would say, a lack of marketing, because I'm not being harassed on YouTube or everything, but oh, it's in cinemas now, go see it. It's just like, oh, Josh has seen this, I'll go check it out. It's on Netflix, excellent, it's easy to watch. So I watched it with my girlfriend. I was pretty much pro Adam Driver.
Yeah.
And I think... carry on.
I think you're totally right. Netflix, I think if you're in the news right now reading that, Netflix just dropped another 2 bills on just content, just in debt. So I have to hand it to Netflix for this. I have to be thankful I have Netflix, that I saw this, and it's part of the reason I'm not ashamed to actually have this in my top 10, because this is not a movie I would normally watch.
Yeah.
It just isn't. I am not this kind of guy. As I've said before, I'm a hardcore crime, drama, thriller, action guy sort of thing, sci-fi. This movie was good enough and available enough. So, yeah, I agree.
I'm shocked that Rise of Skywalker hasn't been on your list yet.
Nah, spoilers.
Still got 8 to go. 8 to go.
It ain't making my list. But one thing I would say, and I don't think anything commented, the pressure of trying to look like a good parent when you do things naturally, but with someone watching you, that pressure of like, am I doing this right? Is this...
Oh, that's the best. That's one of the best scenes.
God, I was dying
He's
inside.
terrific. Whoever that actress was absolutely excellent.
And
I thought you were about to say there's a lot of pressure on you, MJ, because you look so much like Adam Driver.
I was like, it's things that...
MJ, you look more like his son. But I have to say, in this movie, there are scenes like that are absolutely like. Are we talking about the scene where he's got to impress the court-appointed counselor?
And he slices.
And that has happened. Maybe not the slice, but that has happened a million times in real life. A father or mother trying to impress this stranger, and you're not being yourself. But that scene itself and it passes out amazing.
What I thought was interesting, one last note on the film, was I'm not sure if this was done deliberately, but I found there was a lack of bond between the father and the kids.
Yep.
Like, I'm told about this bond, but I felt he had more of a connection with the mother than with the father throughout the film, even though at the beginning.
Well,
I saw it differently.
I even said to you, MJ, like,
I saw that.
I think I said to you privately, MJ, that if that was my kid, I'd just fucking mother. I was like, fuck this kid.
I mean, I'm sure MJ would tell you that's an 8 or 9-year-old kid right there, though.
Yeah.
I love the gif of the boy running, like Adam Driver's arms are open for a hug and the kid just runs past.
He was a little...
I want to kick that fucking kid in.
But it endeared me more to Adam Driver's character. Like, you actually want to parent this
I agree. That's why it became...
Like, you are this court case. So.
We're gonna move on then. We'll get over to Josh's number 9 if he's ready.
Turn.
No, I'm actually supposed to go last, so we're going back to the order
you didn't,
before your connection fucks up. So we're going with you now, whilst you're here.
He's gonna drop out.
Okay, fine.
So
any second now I'll drop out. Look, I'm denied about this next one. There's so many genuine picks I could have put in my top 10 that just missed out. But this one I watched this morning, like literally this morning, and I watched a bit of it again because it was a real interesting movie. I don't know if it's a great movie, but I find it incredibly fascinating. It's called Luz, or Luz, or whatever. It's a German horror film. It was made for like 120,000 euros as like a student thesis film by this dude called Tillman Singer. And whatever this dude does next, I'm in for, because just based off the creativity of the shots, the music, the soundscape that he created, that I'm in, because there are flaws in this movie that I think he could have improved on, but I think given the budget, I can excuse most of that, because the creativity he shows off in this, a bit like Starfish, is phenomenal. this movie ain't for everyone. It's kind of he shoots it on 16mm, so it genuinely feels, and this is going to come up again a couple more times on my list. It feels like a film ripped out of time. It feels like a Giallo film from the 70s, like legitimately. Like it doesn't feel like one of these trying to be like nostalgic Stranger Things type bullshit. It actually does feel like a film from that period, and it's like I said, it's pretty creepy. There's some brilliant sequences. An interrogation.
Can you give us like a quick, just one line?
It's what the film's about. It's
Just
about
sort of,
this girl, this female taxi driver. She wanders into this police station, and she's being followed by what appears to be either a demon or the devil himself.
Okay.
That's trying to get her. That she summoned when she was in Catholic school. And the lead performance by Luana Velez is phenomenal. The stuff that she has to do, all the stuff she's asked to do, is great. There's sequences where she has to speak German, Spanish, English. She has to move her mouth while other characters are talking. I can't properly explain it without giving things away. But it's incredibly creative and interesting, and there's a sequence where there's an interrogation where she's under hypnosis and she's recalling what happened to her earlier in the night, and then fantasy and reality begin to blend into the scene, and it's really interesting how he decides to shoot it and execute it. And it falls apart maybe a bit towards the end because it gets a bit like you kind of really have to pay attention, and it may not make full sense, but and it's a movie I'll be watching more to try to understand more of the themes and what he was trying to get across. But just for creativity alone, this is definitely on my list. I think it's really interesting movie, and if anyone has money in Hollywood or anywhere, give this guy some more money, because I want to see whatever this guy does next. And also a special mention for the score. It's a real like synthy soundtrack. And it's great. This is just right up my alley. It's a weird, strange, kind of Giallo-inspired horror film, and I loved it.
I have a point of order here. How many movies did you see this year, Josh? Roughly? Just roughly.
Nearly 60.
Ballpark it.
Nearly 60.
And the one you watched in the last day made your top 10. Just so the viewers and listeners know, I got cut off one day early here, and stuff like that. It's why I'm mad, because I might have been able to see something. But I'm glad you found something in the last.
That actually wasn't the case, and he actually was making up a whole conversation he had with MJ up with himself.
No, it's the truth. I'm happy for you.
Hey, thanks.
All right. We'll move on to my number 9 before we have to deal with any more bitterness.
Oh, by the way, don't watch MJ. I don't recommend you watch this movie because you'll probably hate it. It's probably your,
okay.
This would be your Mandy of this year.
Oh no, I've already watched Mandy this year. Okay, so on to my number 9. There we go. We got Jojo. One thing I only just noticed, for an actress I'm not particularly fond of, Scarlett Johansson's got a strong representation on my list this year.
Yes.
I was like, she's got 3 films in my top 10. I was like, bloody heck. But yeah, I thought this year for me personally, she's been really good in this, and she's been good in Marriage Story. She isn't a standout performer in either of those films for me personally, but it's just a nice little side note. But Jojo Rabbit, interesting film. Not quite what I expected from a trailer, where I thought it was just going to be comedy galore. It does take a sharp, dark turn midway through. I wasn't sure, when I was thinking about it, it wasn't making sense to me why certain things didn't happen to certain characters, but I won't go into detail because I don't want to spoil the film for you. I'd rather you go watch it. I do want to single out the main actor, the little kid. I don't know his name, but he did a pretty fantastic performance in my opinion. I always say this to my girlfriend. Whenever I comment like a kid has done a great performance, it's because they have, because he does well in his performance. You see some kids say a line and you're like, Jesus Christ. But this kid, he nails it along with his little fat friend.
Hey, I love that kid. That kid's hilarious.
They got some good chemistry, and I felt Hitler was utilized just enough, not to overstay his welcome, and when he does show up, it is amusing. It was just
How
bizarre.
often can you say that in life?
Jeez. But one thing I was curious, I was wondering how this was going to play out to certain audiences, because they are making light of a situation that was not fun. And it was interesting. I saw Josh comment about people being maybe overly sensitive or something to that degree. If he wants to talk about that a bit more, yeah.
I mean, this is one of my honorable mentions again. I'm a big Taika fan, but there was a bit of a backlash towards it from mainly critics, from what I saw. Of like they thought it dealt with too sensitive of material, which is just bullshit. It's like, I don't know. I actually don't know what they wanted from this movie. Like, if you're offended by this movie, then you're too sensitive for life.
No, but it's an interesting thing, because I feel that some of these critics will be, they will say this is insensitive, but then they'll have Django Unchained on their top 10 list from the other year. It's like, how do you balance these things? What do you say is insensitive and what isn't? Because at the end of the day, he isn't, spoilers, he isn't idolized all the way throughout the film. You see, like, from the character's eyes, what happens and how people could be brainwashed at that time, and especially when there'd be very little media other than what's controlled by the state. It's an intriguing way to see how it's portrayed. But I was curious about how that was going to affect certain audiences, or how they were going to interpret it. But one funny thing was, when we went to see this film, saw this woman with like 3 or 4 early teenagers, and I looked to my girlfriend, like, what the fuck is this all about? Like, do they think this is going to be a kid's film, or like, you know, maybe they thought it was Peter Rabbit? Because if I was 10 or 11, I would not be entertained by this film, or I wouldn't be expecting my mom to take me to it. But yeah, Matt, we're going to cycle back around to you again, buddy, for your number 8.
My number 8 is Amazon joint, The Report.
Oh.
Also starring Adam Driver. Annette Bening is in there. Basic, quick plot here. A congressional staffer investigates the CIA's torture program after the 9/11 attacks through the Bush administration and Obama administration. True story. Written by Scott Z. Burns, who also did Contagion, An Inconvenient Truth, The Informant, and is on point this year. He also did one of my honorable mentions with the Steven Soderbergh Laundromat, which I was debating on putting number 10. But this movie, it succeeds at exactly what it's trying to do. It's an intelligent, fast-paced political intrigue. It rises above a lot of its class in the regard that it's a true story, and it's probably one of the only movies that's dealing with the waterboarding thing as well as it did, other than maybe Zero Dark 30, which is referenced in this movie, oddly enough. Fantastically acted, though. Like, if Marriage Story didn't come out this year, I would be pointing at this for Adam Driver. I mean, the guy is just unbelievable. And you were saying about Scarlett Johansson popping up numerous times on multiple movies in your list, MJ.
Yeah.
I've got that problem, if it's a problem, on my list too with a couple actors. Adam Driver is one of them.
Yeah.
This movie is fantastic. If you guys, it almost feels like a David Fincher movie at some points. It's very, very hard hitting, it doesn't pull any punches. They show you what's going on in these CIA black sites. They show you how this American hero, there's no other way to describe it, this character went against everything to get the information out there, like those Watergate reporters back in the 70s did, shades of that. I highly suggest you guys watch this. It does not feel as heavy as it is.
I did see it.
Yeah. Is it on your list? No?
I thought it sucked.
Oh, no.
I thought it sucked. I put this in like my deep 50s.
Wow.
I thought
what didn't you like
Adam
about
Driver was terrific. Adam Driver was terrific. Other than that, this stunk. In that it should have been a documentary. I found the movie was just... How long is this movie? Like 2 hours? I felt it was just 2 hours of reciting facts. I was like, fantastic, I know all of this. I was like, yep, know that, I know that, I know that. And it was just like, it's just people in rooms talking about shit that we already know. And I was like, this could have been an interesting documentary. There's nothing...
So you've read up on
thrilling
this
about it?
You actually knew all of this? Because I didn't know any of this.
I mean, I knew about 95% of it. I've read I've read up on the guy. I know most of the stuff, stuff we've been lied to about. But even if I didn't, I felt like this movie was just reciting facts. It was just like him going to a different room. They found out new stuff. They found out more stuff. They found out more stuff.
What about the side plot
okay.
going back in history of the genesis of the program, where it shows you how
care
the CIA brought in the contractors, and they're like, well, these methods.
Again, that could to me, it's just like it could have just been a documentary, and I probably would have liked it more.
Well, I'm sorry. Sorry about that, Josh.
Sorry.
Jesus Christ. I guess I'm wrong here.
I'm sorry. You're not wrong. You can enjoy it all you want, but for me, I feel like it's just a movie about people in rooms talking about, here's another sheet of paper with some stuff we found out. Here's a flashback showing us the stuff we just talked about. If it didn't have Adam Driver, I think this would have been a disaster. Because he saved it from being a terrible movie. But,
well, I'm not.
Again, some people like it. I'm not going to hate completely on it. It's not a terrible movie. It's just a very bland. To me, it was very bland.
I think the quote was, "It sucked," but I got in my top 8. I thought it was a great movie. I want to get off this now. I want to wait for Josh's number 8.
I'm gonna say it sucked too.
Well, nope, he surprisingly won't. So on to Josh's number 8.
Oh. Haha. Uncut Gems, the latest. I'll talk like Matt for a second. Safdie Brothers joint. I love these guys' last film. Good Time with. I always recommend that to people. The one with Robert Pattinson. That was terrific, and this is not as good as that, but it's gripping. It's thrilling. It's got probably the best Adam Sandler performance. I know that's not saying much, but I think it tops his work in Punch Drunk Love. I think this was really fucking good, and they just have a strange knack for being able to show tension and this overwhelming sense of like anxiety. Like it's literally bottled anxiety in a movie, and they've done it twice now. I really want to find and watch Heaven Knows What, their other film that they did. I've heard it's terrific as well. But I love the score. A lot of people didn't like the score, but I think it was terrific. It had a very like Tangerine Dream element to it. I thought all of the supporting cast were great. I'm surprised that Kevin Garnett was actually really good. I mean, he was playing himself, but he was actually quite good at the stuff he needed to do. But Julia Fox is one of the sexiest women I've ever seen in my life. I love her. She can do whatever she wants. Apparently she used to be a dominatrix. I'd sign up for that. Look, as MJ, you can hear him breathing right now. And these guys, they're just terrific. They have an amazing sense of pace, where things just move frantically, but they're getting information across, and their movies just move rapidly. The editing's terrific in the two things I've seen from them. These are two directors who I'm really excited to watch where their career goes, because I think they're terrific and smart and intelligent dudes. And this is just a really great crime thriller. And every time he made a bad decision, it wasn't like a bad decision in a bad movie where you're like, why would a character do that? You understand why he's making these bad decisions because he can't help himself. And then just when he gets to the end and you think like he's finally got himself out of this hole, and then he makes another decision, I literally put my head in my hands, and I just shook my head and I was like, no, what are you doing? And how it wraps up is actually quite like fitting. I think it made 100% sense. I love this movie, just not as much as Good Time, but it's still one of the best movies of the year, best and one of my favorites.
Well, I'm just gonna add, like, do you think the talk of Sandler getting nominated for an Oscar is real? Have they done the nominations yet? Because I'm a bit out of that, but I know there's a lot of talk about that.
They haven't done it. They haven't done the nominations yet, but I'm feeling like he's going to miss out. Just from like the chatter I've heard of who's the five are going to be. Unfortunately, he might miss out here, which is a shame, because I think other than Adam Driver and maybe, I don't even know, one or two more, I think he gave one of the best leading male performances of the year. I think he was great.
Okay. I saw the film as well. I thought it was okay. It was just, there's a lot of just talking like over each other.
You didn't like all the noise.
Yeah, and it just gets a bit distracting for me, because I'm just like, shut the fuck up, just talk. And
that's the stuff I love. That's the stuff I like, you know.
Well, the thing that kept blowing my mind was I didn't understand why Julia Fox was with him, because she seemed to generally, like, legitimately love him.
Yeah, that's what I was surprised, because I thought she was just there for the money or like for whatever. But then she gets his tattoo, like his name tattooed on her ass. I was like, wow, she really loves this guy.
That's what blew me away. I was like, what? But yeah.
See, I kind of agree with you, and he does this so much in his own movies, where he pairs himself with a hot chick who he'd never get with. But, like, their chemistry was surprisingly really good, and I kind of bought it because they were so good together.
I was calling bullshit on that. I was like, bloody heck, maybe he's got some skills, but hey ho, each to their own. But she was the best thing about the film for me. I was a little confused by a few elements. As I said to you before, it's mainly like those opening shots and the ending shots. I just had no idea what that was all about. I was like, are we referring to it's all bullshit? Because the first one leads into his colonoscopy. So I was like, oh, but then at the end it happens, and I was like, okay, now I'm lost. I was like, okay, weird. Do you have anything to add, Matt?
Yeah, I saw this. I thought it sucked.
Oh, did you now?
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I might as well, I wish you chose something I thought sucked.
Geez.
This is on my list. It's a little higher up later on. Maybe I can do a co-review now.
Yeah, go for it.
When I finished the movie and I wrote my list down later on, I wrote it as uncut stress, because I think Josh nailed it. This movie is nothing but pure dread in a bottle for the entire view. It's this cinematic representation of stress. It's unrelenting. There's tight close-up shots, fast, quick cuts in editing. Everyone's always screaming over each other like you hate MJ, but it's all effective here for what he's trying to do.
Yep, agreed.
And then I'll get to the performances in a minute, but the choice of the main character to make the absolute worst choice at any minute, the absolute worst choice he could make, continually, until the ante keeps getting raised to the very end, until the stakes are basically all or nothing. And I thought that was just brilliant. Adam Sandler, this is what I wanted to see. This is what I wish he did. Like, I got this in Punch Drunk Love. I got a shade of it in Reign Over Me. But this is what I don't understand. If you could be a part of something like this as an actor, why you wouldn't choose to do stuff like this over top of the other
I think he
shit
just.
he puts
I
out?
think he just he just likes to hang out with his friends, man.
I understand, but you could, I understand money. I understand the concept of money, but this is absolutely incredible, man. He does deserve a nomination.
Yep.
The movie's just
Yes,
amazing.
That is the frustrating part of him. It was like he's so good and he's so talented and he can do so much, yet he wants to bum around with his mates.
I mean, I respect him and I'm envious of him, but for that, I mean, he does what he wants to do. But I can't understand why he wouldn't want to do stuff like this more often. And I don't know if you guys touched on this, but we have to talk about the score. This ethereal, incredible score. This cosmic sort of sounds overlapping right over.
Well, I
this.
said it.
What is basic? It's
very
basically
similar to Tangerine Dream.
Oh, okay, that was your It's a very simple story. It's a very simple story, but the score, you wouldn't think they would go together very well, but I think it right off the hop on that introduction.
Well, to me, like that score helps play into like that feeling, because the way I feel about the two movies of theirs I've seen is it's like the plot of Sorcerer, where it's a film about these films are basically have the feeling of you're in a truck going down a bumpy road with like hundreds of pounds of nitroglycerin that could explode at any moment. That's what it feels like watching these movies.
Yeah, it's a boulder going down a mountain, picking up speed, and it's not going to end well. This is, I guess I'll get back to it a little later, but it's a great choice. It's a great movie. It's and that you guys were discussing why she's attracted to him or why they would work as a pair. The way I saw it watching it is she has all the problems he has. She's addicted to the thrill, putting it on the line, the gambling. They feed each other's vices that way. But it's a great movie.
Yeah, it's a good point.
All right, so going on to my number 8, and we've got Ford vs Ferrari.
Oh, this is a great movie.
Yeah, this was a film based on
This was a
real
film.
life, a true story. I didn't know anything about the story, but it gripped me. I thought the opening was very effective, because fuck doing a car race in those conditions. Like when I say it made me feel uneasy, I was like, oh god, this is gonna end badly, because he's driving in the night and it's turning to black, and it's like horrible. And I like these kind of films where you go obviously from point A to point B. You just want to say fuck you to the opposition, which was what this film was about, and dealing with the politics of having to do this. I just can't believe there's so much politics in racing, in making the fastest car. And it blew me away to know that he actually did get fucked over like this in real life. I would be so pissed, like unreal. Fun film.
He sells that though, man. Like he sells that moment where he accepts, like he could have had his moment of glory, could have been selfish, but he's like, all right, this is what they all say about me, that I'm the selfish guy and I'm not a team player, and he just took it on the chin.
Yeah.
And I thought Bale did a great job.
Like, Bale's performance was interesting, because I'm not sure how you gauge it, but for me, do you ever have this thing where you've heard like an actor's turned in this phenomenal performance, but for me it's always like, oh, it's Christian Bale doing his British like acting, oh, it's Bale doing his American acting.
To me this is just Bale going to work doing his thing.
Yeah, like he does certain
but
things.
He's so much better than most people. You know?
Yeah, like at least he tries to be versatile in it, but it just reminded me of his like Cockney guy from The Prestige.
Prestige.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, this is his British persona, and now he's going to do stuff like this. And it's certain mannerisms he has that he does things, but he does well. Like, I'm not going to knock him, but it's just a distraction for me. maybe it's because I've seen so many of the guys' films, and this is just part of that. But for some actors, they don't even diversify themselves much at all, so credit to them for doing this. Fun film, told a story which I enjoyed, learned a bit of history. That's all I've got to say.
It's one of the most genuinely entertaining movies of the year.
Yeah.
It's a good old-fashioned Hollywood movie that they just don't make anymore. Those like 50 to 60 mid-range movies with 2 stars doing a really good film.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it's not this phenomenal game-changing masterpiece, but it's just a really solid, entertaining film that if it was put on in front of me any time, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
It's such an easy watch.
Yeah, that's what I'd say.
It's well made across the board.
Moving on to Matt, your number 7, please.
My number 7 is Monos. Monos? I'm not sure how to pronounce it. To be Monos.
Did you watch this after I told you I'd watched it, or did you watch it before?
It was on your original list. That you had watched. I was picking through it.
Yeah.
I didn't think I'd have time for it with the amount of movies I had left to watch. But
this was damn good. This is an honorable mention for me. This is damn good.
This is a good movie. Basically, for just brief synopsis, it takes place in what could be a fictional, but most probably fictional, either civil war or guerrilla war, somewhere in the Amazon or South America, I'm assuming.
Colombia,
somewhere in there. Definitely hinted at in South America. I think we can agree. And basically follows a small group, platoon almost, of young soldiers, child soldiers who not super young. I would say early teens to mid-teens. Yeah, teenage. That are basically assigned the task of keeping imprisoned a political prisoner from the other side. We don't know exactly what her role is on the other side. She's a doctor, we think. But fantastic movie. If you want to get the tone of this, I would think probably Lord of the Flies meets Apocalypse Now or Platoon. I think that's a good way to describe this.
I'd agree with that.
I mean, the movie even owns that. There's a shot of a pig's head on a pike, which is the iconic scene of Lord of the Flies. I think this movie holds its influences and wears them on its sleeve. So if it didn't, I think it would lose points for me and not even be in my top 10 because those influences are right out there. It's hard to deny that. The Lord of the Flies aspect being that this group of kids basically devolves into barbarism as they slowly get more and more isolated from what their main objectives are in the war. The performances that these young kids give is absolutely incredible. There's some serious topics being dealt with here of parental figuring, growing up in an age of war, death, betrayal, and I thought it was a fantastic movie. It's if you stick through it with the end,
this is a phenomenal movie.
Yeah.
It's
if you
really
stick with it through the end, there are some things that happen towards the end that really make you. I was surprised, but there is child violence in this, and there is some pretty heavy subjects being dealt with. It's not a fun ride by any stretch. You have to be patient.
I was surprised how restrained it was, though. It could have gone very exploitative and gruesome, but it was more just gritty and I was surprised how much restraint he showed with some stuff.
He did. I wouldn't say there isn't any of the heavier stuff at all in it. Towards the end, but anyway, I think this movie deserves a watch if you are patient. The visuals in this movie alone, though, the cinematography is worth the viewing alone. Okay.
And the score by Mika Levy, who did the score of Under the Skin, is one of the best of the year and deserves an Oscar nomination. Same with the cinematography. I'd say, for me, the only reason this didn't make my top 10 is because it was such a... I didn't know how I felt about it at the end of it, because I only saw this a few days ago, and it was just such a... It's a harrowing thing. It's not very fun to watch. I think the first 20 to 30 minutes of this are close to being the absolute... two best or top two, top three best stuff of the entire year. I think it dips a little bit in the middle and comes back strong at the end. The start is just fantastic. Like
I was going to say, if you turn this
all that
movie
stuff on
off
that
in the first
mountainside.
half hour, if you turn this movie off in the first half hour because you can't continue on, it's because you're not a movie fan. The first half hour sets up the
I'd
movie
agree with it.
beautifully.
Oh yeah.
And to call the ending melancholy, I think would be an understatement. It's definitely
Don't
not
spoil
a
the
fun.
ending.
I absolutely wouldn't. It is not a fun ride. It is in the vein
Great,
of Apocalypse Now, Platoon, Lord of the Flies. It's all of those things, and it's more than the sum of those parts, though.
Shot.
Yeah.
Great last shot.
Right.
With just pure acting by this young kid.
And now we're going to move on to Josh's next film, because I don't want this film potentially ruined for me. You sold me at Platoon meets Apocalypse Now and Lord of the Flies, so we're good with that. Josh, do you want to tell
There's
us
a lot of
your...
flies in that movie too. That freaked me out. Number 7 is... Dude, that fly sequence in Monos with her in the jungle is just... Ugh, it gets up... I hate that sound.
A getaway in the
7.
Amazon. Yeah.
Number 7 for me, surprisingly, is In Fabric. Written, directed by Peter Strickland, who did Barbarian Sound Studio, which I really liked, and did Duke of Burgundy, which I really hated. And I saw the trailer for this, and I was like, oh yeah, it looks like a Peter Strickland film. The plot, basically, is about a killer dress. This woman gets this dress from this department store, this weird department store, and it's a killer dress that kills its victims, basically, is the best way to describe it.
We've all been there.
Which sounds ridiculous, and I was genuinely surprised that I absolutely loved this movie. I think it's hilarious, like a very pitch black comedy. And I was surprised because I thought it was going to be I thought it was going to be the same thing as Duke of Burgundy, where it's a bit super pretentious and artsy and stuff. And there's definitely that element of it. Like, it's one of the best shot films of the year, and it has that ultra artsy style. It has that, again, it feels like a bit like Luz, where it's a bit like a giallo movie, and it genuinely feels like a film ripped out of the 70s or 80s. But it's the comedy in this that won me over. It feels like if the UK version of The Office or IT Crowd or Are You Being Served, those British comedy shows, were set and directed by Dario Argento. That's kind of how it feels. Marianne John Baptiste, who's the lead actress, she's great. Gwendolyn Christie from Game of Thrones is in here. Julian Barrett is hilarious in his small role as this guy who you ever have meetings at your job where you have to deal with human resources or human relations, those kind of shit? That's what his character kind of is with this other character, the lead from what was the Sightseers. Yeah, those two are terrific. But the show stealer is Fatma Mohammed, who plays this movie's version of Madame Blanc. I think the character's name is Miss Luckmore. It's some of the quotes she says. It's things I can't remember because they're just so strange and poetic and brilliant. But it's some of the most brilliant pieces of dialogue delivered hilariously camp by this great actress, and she's just phenomenal and gives one of the most memorable performances of the year. I don't know about that best, but definitely memorable. The music by Cavern of Antimatter is brilliantly haunting. One of the best scores of the year, some of the best cinematography of the year. This movie takes a turn 2/3 of the way through, where we start following it's minor spoiler, but we start following a completely different story 2/3 of the way through, and it's very jarring. And at first I was like, oh no, this movie's lost me, because I was kind of invested in what was happening. But then there's this scene with a baby, a fantasy sequence, a dream sequence about this character describing a dream he had about a baby being born, which is one of the weirdest, creepiest, but most hilariously ridiculous and funny things I've seen in years. Which then after that I was like, this movie's got me for the rest. And then the way everything wraps up is brilliant and funny, and I love this movie. People can think it's pretentious, but trust me, if you get past all the other shit, it's hilarious. Like, it's a very specific kind of humor, very dark. And a lot of people are saying this is kind of like an anti-consumerism movie, but I didn't really see that at all. And in interviews I've seen him talk about it, he's like, no, I wasn't really trying to get that across. He was kind of just showing it for what it is and using it for some other thematic ideas he was playing with. But strange movie, very strange, but very funny.
Is it? Can I ask you, Josh? I haven't watched this. Killer Dress. I'm just trying to get a feel for the tone. Sounds very esoteric. Are we talking like a Swiss Army Man feel, sort of like where this a crazy concept?
No, Swiss Army Man stunk.
Yeah,
this is
the concept sounds insane to me.
It's this is a better movie than this movie, but it's kind of similar to Rubber. If you ever saw the movie Rubber about the killer tire, where it's just so out there and bizarre and weird, and you just go with it. You just have to go with the premise. But to me, like, it's the humor that won me over with this. Like, the style is up my alley, don't get me wrong. Like, the visual style, it makes, it scratches all the itches that I like, but it's the humor that made me rank this so high, and why it's on my list. And also just Fatman Muhammad and the baby scene alone are worth seeing this movie for. Those two elements. Done. I guarantee this would be a movie MJ hates. This is an Andrew and Josh movie.
Why am I not surprised? Okay.
You might find it weird enough and funny enough to like it, but I don't know.
Might give it a try. There's a few of them where I'm like,
watch that on my review of this movie on the Fandome. I put a link to the baby scene. Watch that. If you think that's funny, watch the movie. If you don't, don't watch it.
I was like, there's a few films so far. I'm like, oh, this sounds really interesting. The poster looks cool. I might go check this out. MJ's not going to like this film. I was like, oh, okay. Maybe not.
I mean, you might. It's really weird. It's really, really, really weird.
Well, yeah, we'll probably find out more when we get to your number ones or twos, probably. Fuck me. Okay. I'm going to move us along. I'm going to go to my number 7. I believe that's where we're at. And it's El Camino. I totally forgot I saw this film until I saw a list of all the films.
I don't know if that's a good sign.
Well, it's one of these things where you kind of almost forget it's a film. But
yeah, no, it's
like because Josh sends us like a list of all the films he's seen, because a year is such a long time, and films you see early on, you're like, oh shit, yeah, definitely that would make my list. And because you see it so early on, you tend to lump it in with the year before. So if I'm seeing a film this month, I'm probably thinking, oh, that was 2019, because it feels like a lifetime by the time you get to all the stuff being chucked out in December, October, and November. Because I felt a lot of my favourite films this year were in the last 2 months of the year. Like, if you looked at my list, it's probably that. If you stretch it to the last quarter of the year, that's probably 8 or 9 out of 10 of my films. But El Camino, in my review, I said, yeah, it was a fine film. Did it need to be made? Probably not, but it doesn't. That's not talking about the quality of what it is. It was very good quality. It still feels like a TV show with a bit of gloss added to it. Like Breaking Bad is not a bad-looking TV show. For a TV show, it's great. The composition's always the main part of it for Breaking Bad. I don't think it looks pretty, but the composition of the image is outstanding, which is really bizarre to say, because a lot of things look visually pretty, but maybe the composition isn't there. And the way they utilize shots in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, it's down to the editing and the composition, and I'm always down for that. But this felt like Breaking Bad with a bit of gloss, and it was more like an epilogue. And if you really like the character of Jesse, this will be a nice addition. It adds some moments. If this was like the way you would view this episode is maybe an episode 10 of a Game of Thrones season, where it's the coming down after a big episode 9, and this probably could have been an episode you could have trimmed away some of these flashbacks, which maybe would have been viewed as fan servicey, but I felt it wrapped up it basically wrapped up Breaking Bad in a nice present, if that's what you wanted. And I just really enjoyed it. It doesn't sound like I'm giving this film like high praise considering where it is on my list. But it's just hard to describe it to someone, but it's number 7 for me. Anyone got any comments on El Camino before we move on to Matt?
I mean, I really liked it. I'd just echo the thing of like the feeling I had after it was like it didn't really do anything I didn't expect it to do.
Yeah.
Like if that's pretty much what I would have thought he would have done, and ultimately I'm like, did I need that? No. While I watched it, I enjoyed it, and I think it didn't do any disservice to the character or Breaking Bad. So I think it, again, really good. Those are my thoughts.
Okay.
I did not see it. It's very hard for me to picture anything Breaking Bad without Walter White. Does the movie suffer from
Isn't
that? Oh, that's great.
I wouldn't say it suffers from it, but the interesting thing would be is if you do a rewatch of Breaking Bad and you finish it, do you go on to watch El Camino? Because maybe the lack of Walter White would be a lot more apparent if I just finished a binge watch of Breaking Bad, because that is very much Walt's story. It is Jesse's as well to a point, but I felt Jesse was very pushed to the side in the latter half of the season.
Does this enhance Breaking Bad at all? Like, does it enhance the original series at all, or does it do anything to...
Nah. To me, it didn't.
I don't think it detracts, though.
Didn't take away, but it doesn't detract.
Doesn't detract. Yeah.
It's just there, really. Like, you might really enjoy it. You might be like, oh, this is a nice bit of dessert.
As a comparison, like, I think Better Call Saul adds a lot to Breaking Bad, whereas this didn't go either way.
Fair enough.
But I enjoyed it.
It's a hard film to describe because it sounds like you actually kicking the shit out of it, but it's like, no, it's...
But it's because Breaking Bad is so high. It's such a high benchmark of the last 10 years of anything, film or TV. Like, it's... I think it's a huge compliment to say it didn't detract.
Yeah.
It had high standards to live up to. If it just managed to meet expectations, that's a win, but it's hard for people to see that as a win.
Yeah, it's not a prequel trilogy or a sequel trilogy.
Exactly.
Right.
Episode 9.
On to you, Matt. You're number 6, I believe.
My number 6. I'm not sure what kind of reception I'm going to get for this one, but it's Light of My Life.
Okay.
Written, directed,
what
Casey Affleck.
Well, one second. I just want to mention this. I have no idea what this film is either, but I saw the poster and I just kept thinking of The Road with Viggo Mortensen.
It's got a bit of The Road. It's got a bit of that. What was that movie last year with Ben Foster? Leave No Trace. Yeah.
So you guys have not seen this?
No, I've not even heard of it.
Basically,
it sucks. I don't know. I haven't seen it.
It sucked. No, it's got elements of Children of Men where there's a mass genetic dying off of a lot of the human population.
I want you to be very careful going forwards now because you've sold me a bit. Yeah, I'm like, don't be ruining this one for me.
No, I promise no spoilers here. We're living in a world where all women have died, okay? Casey Affleck is trying to live in a world where he has...
That's why you like it so much.
He's got a daughter, and he's basically living in a world of men.
Thanks, Matt. I thought that was his son.
I don't know what your son looks. Oh, yeah. Well, that's sort
looks
of a
like
plot
MJ.
Point. All these things are revealed in the first 5 minutes, but
that's the first 5 minutes spot for me. Thanks, champ.
No, I won't watch it anymore.
Can we just move on to
Like,
Josh,
go on.
please?
No. Come on, I actually want to hear about this.
Yeah.
Please tell me this.
You're sure?
Yes.
It's a very bare bones production. It just basically follows this father living in this world where society has broken down, and he's basically got a lot of concerns with not only one of the youngest people known around, because his daughter was born sort of just after the events causing the downfall of society, but also trying to protect her from the people that have not seen someone so young or that gender. And it's absolutely phenomenally acted, well written, directed by Casey Affleck as well. I think it has all the things that I loved of sort of the best parts of The Road for me. And the best sort of sci-fi elements of Children of Men are in this, although the scale is much smaller. You're not seeing much of the world, you're seeing a day-to-day struggle of how this father tries to get his daughter
How
through life.
long does this movie go for?
I think it's just shy of 2 hours.
Wow. I thought a film like this that you've described would have probably topped out at 90 at the most.
Yeah, it's like, if that was 90 minutes, I'd be watching this tonight.
Question.
To be honest, I don't have the runtime on me. Go
Okay,
ahead.
question for you, Matt. So, I'm just curious about this.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard of the film, and Josh hasn't heard of the film. Like, if Josh hasn't heard of it, that's usually a bit more newsworthy for me, because me not hearing about it, well, I'm a fucking surprise. But do you think this has something to do with the bad reputation that Casey Affleck's had, or like damage to his reputation?
Oh, yes.
Because you're saying he directed this as well. Now, if we go back a few years, if you're saying he's directed this, we're probably, hearing a lot more about it.
Yeah, I'd say probably, but didn't they hand him the Oscar after all the controversy as well?
Yeah,
Well-
but you can't really deny that performance.
I can't speak to why
It's
this
too
hasn't been better known.
Yeah. Because I felt like they gave him the Oscar, but then did the Me Too movement blow up afterwards, and so he kind of got sucked back into it again as well, or...
I'm not even sure I know the accusations against him. Maybe we don't want to go into
Me
it.
either. I was just curious because basically I was just surprised Josh hadn't heard of the film and that it made it so high on your list, and it's his directorial debut, is it?
I think so. And did you guys see Manchester by the Sea? Obviously you've seen Gone Baby Gone.
I haven't seen it, but I hear about his performance all the time.
This guy can act.
Yeah.
This guy is one of the best actors out there, in my opinion, and this
I
movie
agree.
shines. The entire... I think if you guys just watch the first 5 minutes, I think it sets the tone for the rest of the movie. I don't want you to picture broad scale. It's even smaller scale than The Road, but it's hardcore
That's fine,
sci-fi in the sense of the
Okay.
day-to-day struggle in a post-apocalyptic world, and it's absolutely brilliantly told,
Wow.
well acted. This actress is phenomenal as
You've
well.
sold me on it, so I'll certainly
Great.
check that out.
Is it called Light of My Life? Is that what you said?
Light of my life. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Going on to Josh's.
This will be up old Matt's alley, I think. Dragged Across Concrete. Writer-director S. Craig Zahler. This guy is a genius. I love this guy so much. I think he's a better writer than Quentin Tarantino, even in terms of dialogue. I really loved Brawl in Cell Block 99, which is his previous film. Bone Tomahawk, I've only grown to appreciate and love more. I've watched it 3 times now, and every single time when it gets to that cave scene in that movie, I feel this overwhelming, I literally feel sick in my stomach, like from the dread, not even just the gore, just the feeling of the tone of horror and dread. And it's not even a real horror film; it's a fucking western. But this is another great one. He's such a good director. It's a crime thriller about these two kind of dirty cops who get suspended, so they need to make some money, so then they get involved with a heist. And it's like 2.5 hours long, maybe a little longer than that even. It's a slow burn. But it's everything I like. I love Mel Gibson. I think, personal aside, I think he's one of the best actors of his generation, one of the best filmmakers of his generation. Vince Vaughn was great in Brawl and Cell Block 99. He's really good in this. Don Johnson has a real small role and he's really good. Tori Kittles nearly gives the best performance of the film. I love all like the stakeout stuff because this movie feels like a good potboiler novel where it just takes its time. You spend time with these characters. It's really great, and I love how it wraps up. It's really dark and gritty, and I think it's terrific. I another one of these directors where I'm gonna just follow this guy's career forever now because I think S. Craig Zahler is great. I'm gonna go out of my way to read all of his books that he's written. Apparently, he's written some really terrific novels that have been recommended to me. Yeah, I love this movie. I haven't got that much more to say on it. I just think if you like crime, gritty crime films, this one's for you. Even though it's long, it's great. It's like reading a great book.
I would probably echo Josh's thoughts on this. This made my top 10 list as well. And again, this was another one where I had to look through a list of films and I was like, oh, this came out. Well, I saw this year, so this can go on the list because it came out early 2019. And it's usually in like the month for films to die in. Again, I rate this and Bone Tomahawk as his two best films. Cell Block 99 is always like a distant third for me out of these two films. I really enjoy it. The characterization of these guys, if you liked The Shield and you could see like the characters are very similar in ideology of what they do, where they are, you say they're like scummy cops, but they're not the worst kind of scummy cops, if that makes sense.
Let's see. I was going to say, but going back to like the Jojo Rabbit thing, with like apparently the critic, with this movie, apparently the critics like walked out of it and they said, "Oh, it's so disgusting and brutal and racist and awful and blah blah." And then all the audiences saw it and they loved it.
Yeah.
They're like, what are you talking about? And I saw this, and I saw the start of it, the stuff that like got the cops themselves in trouble. And yeah, it's bad, but I'm like, how is this like crossing a line? Like they're just, that's what the characters would probably do and say, and these kind of people would say and do.
I mean, he has a way of building up these characters where I like it. This is what I like about his films. There's no fuckery. Like, if you're in danger, you're in fucking danger. Like, your ass can go.
Yep.
And that's what I love about his films. And he builds up his characters enough where you're like, fuck.
But you see, like, you don't have to have likable characters. Like, they're interesting characters.
Yeah.
Though. You don't have to agree or like them.
It's like where you have a friend that might do questionable things, but you still like them, and you're like, it's like,
Doesn't this argument apply to Mel Gibson himself?
Sure.
How's he? Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Mel's the man.
Mel's still around. He's doing well then.
I mean,
yeah. Hey, you know who he looks like? Who he reminded me of in this movie? If you did a live action adaptation of the Batman the Animated Series, James Gordon.
Yeah,
I see it in that poster.
Another fun thing about this was, because I just visited Vancouver in December, once I came back and I saw some of the scenes in this, like, it's in Vancouver. I was like, gotcha. But yeah, really recommend this film as well, Josh. Really enjoyable. I'll watch any film that he makes. His films don't look necessarily pretty, but that's what makes some of the action or the gore or the brutality stand out that more, because it feels much more real. For me a lot of the time, and it is almost to the point of being sadistic sometimes, but it's just brutal and you're like, fuck. And it resonates.
The Carpenter scene in this.
That's what I don't want to give away, but it's what resonates with the characters as well, because there's actions and there's consequences and there's a lack of action that has consequences as well. And it shows you a situation where you want people to maybe trust people, and characters are truthful to themselves and they do live up to what they have promised, but because you've tried to pull a move, it's maybe not as much as you would have liked. It's a film that leaves you very satisfied, if that's what I can say. I just don't want to spoil it for Matt. Matt, just go fucking watch it.
I will.
Moving on to my number 6, is it?
Oh yeah, you're number
Yep.
6. Yep.
It's going to be a brief one. The King, we've already discussed it, so we're going to go back round to Matt's number 5.
Okay. My number 5 is, well, this will be a quick time saver. Uncut Gems, which you've already talked about. So, which is, we talked in depth about. I just want to say again, I absolutely love this movie. Movies that capture a feeling and don't let you escape it really stick with me. And this one, like Josh so adequately put, it is stress. And I don't think they've ever depicted someone with a gambling problem quite as effectively as they did with this, and how it is a disease that affects your family, yourself, everyone around you, your life, and how there's only one way to end up with that sort of disease, and it is pure catastrophe. So,
one of the interesting notes about this too is, like, apparently it's based off like a guy that was friends with their father or something, and they're like, and they asked them if he's seen the movie, and they're like, yeah, we haven't been able to get in touch with him for a long time.
Oh,
like,
wow.
that guy's probably fucking dead.
he's in the bottom of a river somewhere.
Most likely.
Right, then let's move on to Josh's number 5.
The Irishman is my number 5. Martin Scorsese, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Harvey Keitel, Joe Pesci. Enough said. I mean, it's a great gangster movie by Scorsese. He has some of the best actors of all time. I think Joe Pesci, for me personally, steals the show. I know a lot of people say Al Pacino, but I love this movie. I sat through it in one go. It didn't feel like 3.5 hours. I think it's one of the best made films of the year. The de-aging effects, I think, are really good, apart from like a couple little things. Mainly for me, the De Niro's eyes, which are a bit weird with the effects. But and I think that might be, thinking about it and why I didn't rate it higher. I've been thinking about this for the last week or two. Of like, I wonder if the effects will hurt this movie 20 years from now. Of like, when things get even better, will we look back on this and it might like look a little iffy, and like that could potentially affect it. I just wonder if that's the case. But the story, the acting, the structure, the filmmaking itself, I think are terrific. I just have a question of, when you do like an experiment with the effect, will it hold up in 10, 20, 30 years from now?
My quick thoughts on that. How old is De Niro and Pacino?
Past 70
God,
at this point.
I don't know.
So
70, yeah.
it's kind of like, I don't think this film will suffer from that, because they'll either be retired or, unfortunately dead. If they were going to be around for another X amount of years, so say if they were in their 50s and they was going into this film in 20 years' time with the technology, it probably would look better then. But for now, it looks fine. I don't think it's going to be detracted too much, because we've seen them grow up through their careers. It actually got to a point where I couldn't keep track of which one's the real version.
Oh yeah, I agree 100%. But it's you always think that, and then it's like, oh yeah, 20 years it gets even better, and you're like,
I think
it's just a question.
For sure. I think what hurts this film the most is actually the trailers. When I saw the trailers, I'm like, God, this looks horrible. But when I watch it in the film, it's different in how it works. Maybe it lures you into it, and it works subconsciously because you're watching it for longer, and it fits better. But it never got too distracting for me. It worked really well, and that was the highest compliment I could give it. Was I actually couldn't tell which part was the de-aged part. Obviously, the younger selves, but
And I love how like it feels like it's him looking back on those movies he made.
Yeah. Well,
and looking at it through a different perspective, and the last shot of this movie I think is one of the best closing shots of the year, and it's like really sums up kind of what the movie's about, and it's like this dude is just he's alone. Like,
this is where I want to kind of hijack this. So I said in my review, because I couldn't get it across properly, where I felt if this was not made by Scorsese, would it be as praised? And the reason is because it feels very much like a Scorsese film, but he's going against... It's like the flip side of Goodfellas, where it's about enjoying the high life of these things. Like, this is what I felt Scorsese's done in a couple of his films, where he's shown the high life of these lives, and then it goes down to like, but it never ends well. Like Wolf of Wall Street.
Usually, you die early, or you go to jail early.
Yeah. Or Goodfellas.
Pays.
And what this film lacked that those other films had was it was fun. Like, these characters doing it, and it's fun. And you're like, damn, I could get sucked into doing this because it's fun. Whilst this felt very... It was the anti-version of those films. And that's why I felt like...
I wouldn't say it wasn't not fun, though. I wouldn't say it wasn't fun. Like, at the beginning, like, it has that, like... It has that tone where like things move along and like these guys have success, and it has that. I wouldn't say it's deep. It doesn't have the melancholic feel until about the last hour, where like you see like this life doesn't pay off, and the decisions that these guys make didn't pay off.
The reason I say it's never fun is because
it's
always
not as
know.
Fun as Goodfellas.
Yeah, and that's probably what I'm judging it against, and that's probably not as fair to it, but. I always felt like this guy, like the mob had him by the balls from the start. It's like, you're going to go do this. Oh, I heard you was going to do a laundromat thing. He's like, oh, fuck, the vice on his nuts is tight.
I tell you what, though, as well with his character, is it felt like, comparatively to Ray Liotta in Goodfellas, where he loved the life, and in Robert De Niro's character in this, it was just a job. It was just something he needed. This is his job. This is what he did.
And
he didn't really think about it much further than that.
I never felt like he was untouchable, though. Even when he got the ring, I always felt you're still pretty close to being pushed off that edge. And in the middle,
they show that with all of them. Like, you have to like.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you are, if you don't play the game, if you don't play by the rules.
But that's
our rules.
Like Goodfellas, they always established like, oh, if you were a made man, I'm a made man because I'm like your best buddy. It's like I always quote that to someone. It's like, oh, if one of us get made, it's like we get made. It's like
you say that to me all the time.
Yeah. It's like I always quote it, and it's like, damn, and that's what I mean. Like, I never felt you had that feeling in this. You could argue that Pesci's always got De Niro covered. But I always felt very uneasy about things, especially with the children in the film, because I always felt it didn't go in that direction, but I felt her interactions with Joe Pesci and Pacino's character was going to go down a different route, but it didn't.
Yeah, I got that sense too.
And I was like, "Oh, are we going there? Are we hinting this maybe happened, but we're not sure? It's up in the air." But it's like maybe I'm just reading it differently because maybe at a different time these things were more harmless, but now we're like, And you see these characters, and you could understand. Not their attraction to the character, but to the idea of having a child that they couldn't have. So, it's kind of fucking weird with Pacino's character, but you see it. And
yeah, he's a great Jimmy Hoffa too. Like he was perfect. I think that's the best performance I've seen of him in. God, I can't even tell you how long. A long time.
Would you say, if you liked The Godfather Part 2, that you'd enjoy this film?
Yeah.
Because I felt like this was like The Godfather 2 for me, where it sinks for me in the middle, whilst for the first one, I wouldn't say the first one's enjoyable like Goodfellas, but I'm saying
Press pause.
Huh?
Press pause right there. Did you just say that Godfather Part 2 dips in the middle? Is that what you just said?
See, this is where this film loses me. Is for me, The Godfather Part 2 and this, they have a lot of like courtroom stuff or historical drama, and like it's just not interesting to me compared to like the first one where it's like straight through narrative and you're seeing like son take over reigns. This one feels like, oh, this is interesting. Where are we going to go? And it gets caught up with like explaining unions and courtrooms, and I was like, oh, fuck me. And it just lost me there. And that's where it's similar to The Godfather Part 2 for me in that regard. So just
I
curious.
think The Godfather Part 2's maybe the greatest film ever made.
Well, I'm not gonna. I think it's for another podcast, but I disagree.
Look,
with
we'll
what
get
you
into
just
that
said there
another
about the abortion.
Wait, disagree with me or him?
There. Him for The Godfather. But,
Thank God.
yeah, I had a major problem with the special effects in this one.
Was it a boy?
I could not. Was it a boy? Oh, Michael, you're so blind. Yeah, I had major problems with the special effects in this. It was distracting. It yanked me out, and quite famously, right now on YouTube, someone has applied better special effects.
No, they haven't.
Store bought.
They fucking haven't.
Okay, let's say that's.
I knew
okay.
MJ was gonna come at you.
Let's say that's not true. I was distracted by the special effects they put on screen. I did not think it yanked me out. I thought it looked horrible. And furthermore,
my friend had the
couldn't
same
they just
problem.
have casted younger actors for Robert De Niro? I would have bought that way better and not have been yanked out than I was with the ghoulish special effects they put on his face. I did not like it
I
at all.
felt that was part of the allure,
Yeah, ghoulish.
because if you use other actors to portray these guys as younger, you kind of lost half the selling point of the film.
Yeah, for me the selling point is these guys and Scorsese. I don't want to see younger actors.
But I didn't want to see a 70-year-old or whatever the hell age he is. He's an old.
To me, the only distraction to me is like when you see him like
Mollywop
CGI
someone.
mask on him. I thought it looked horrible.
when you see him like fighting people. When you see him fight people, it seems distracting because like a younger face of this, you can tell it's like an old dude punching a motherfucker. But like,
but it went
I
past
don't
the
know.
face.
I mean,
he
fair
had
enough.
an old man's body with the. I mean, the movie's. That's my only complaint with the movie.
A friend of mine had the exact. He didn't fit. He got through 20 minutes and had to stop because he again was a bit like you, was distracted. So I can. Fair enough. To me, I just went into it and like to me, it's just like no one is as good as Scorsese. Yeah. Like that's still alive and.
Tarantino is. But,
it's amazing. Well, look,
I would have. Well, everyone, you lost.
Whatever you say, man.
I mean, I
sure.
really love this movie, but I just wish if it was a choice between younger actors cast for the younger version of themselves, I understand what you're saying. The draw is that playing the younger selves as well. I would have opted for the younger actors.
Now, the problem is, if you cast younger actors, are you getting them to do an impression of the older guys?
I don't know. Scorsese's the master. He could figure it out. But I just
thought
don't
you
like
said Tarantino was the master.
Well, he's the apprentice.
One of the few times where I've seen probably a different actor play, someone that's older than him. Have you guys saw Boardwalk Empire?
Godfather 2. No,
I can't believe
not
you said
actually.
Godfather 2 was boring in the middle. But...
Have you saw the Boardwalk Empire, Matt?
Just a few episodes.
Damn. There's a guy who does Steve Buscemi plays his younger self, and it's fucking surreal. I was trying to figure out did they de-age him? What the fuck did they do? So that's one of the few times it's like, damn, okay, a younger actor worked out there. And
to be fair, I don't think it's
example.
Yeah, go ahead.
The best example is Robert De Niro playing a young Marlon Brando in Godfather Part 2.
Yep, exactly. And to be fair, I don't think it's this movie's fault. It didn't work for me in anything. Do you remember the X-Men? Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen de-age. That didn't work for me. There's this uncanny valley thing that I just cannot get over with that stuff. I think this movie did it better than that. But it's still, I hate things that yank me out
Yeah.
movies. And every time I saw, and like I was saying, it's not just the faces that they use the same bodies as well in some of those scenes in the wider shots of a younger him, but with the same bone structure of a 70-year-old body that it's a small complaint at the end of the day, but it isn't, because it's a big chunk of the movie for me. And oh man, there's something about that special effect that bothered me. But
Yeah.
that's my only complaint. Joe Pesci, man, it was great to see him again. Oh my god,
The prison scene with the bread and the grape
loved it.
juice.
Loved that
just
scene. Yeah,
the best
absolutely.
acting maybe of the entire year.
I wish we saw more of Joe Pesci in the gap years that we haven't seen him. I really wish he stuck
I mean,
around
the guy
more.
is
He's
the
incredible.
guy is one of the greatest actors of all time, and people always talk about De Niro and Pacino, but like Pesci stole every movie that he was in with those
Why
guys.
did
Like
he take a break?
he just doesn't like doing it, man. He just hates
Yeah.
it. Like he has no
What was his last
interest
movie?
in.
Yeah.
I don't even remember. Like
was
actually, he was
after
in the
Casino.
De Niro directed one. No, it was the De Niro directed movie. The Good Shepherd, was that it?
When was that? What year?
There was some movie
How
De
long
Niro like it was like early, maybe late 2000s, I think. It's been a long time.
Okay. That's shorter than I thought. Like, I haven't seen much of him since mid '90s. You know, it's been.
But before
I miss
that
him.
as well, like he took a long break and only came back
Yeah.
because De Niro, I think, was directing it.
Yeah.
I hope he gets nominated and wins for Best Supporting Actor again, because I want to
Yes.
see if he can beat his previous best time speech for Goodfellas, which was just
Yeah, I
this is a
saw
great
that
honor,
speech.
thank you.
Yeah.
Which is
something
the
like
best
that.
speech in Oscar history.
That one scene with the bread where they're dipping the bread in the wine and he's nodding and he's gumming it. It's just great.
Should
Absolutely
win it
great.
just for that.
Just for that scene. Yeah.
Moving on. What's your 5, MJ?
Well, my 5, because we can make up some time, was Marriage Story, which you've already heard my
Brilliant.
thoughts on. So we can cycle back round to my boy Matt. Tell us your number 5, big man. Well, number 4.
I'm on number 4 now. I can do it again though. My number 4 is Death Proof by Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, no.
A
This
Midsummer.
guy.
Midsummer.
I'm glad someone
Ari
mentioned
Aster
this, because
directed.
I want to talk about this. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You go.
I haven't decided yet whether I like this better or the same.
I thought that was going to be the end of
Hereditary.
the sentence. Number 4. I haven't decided if I like it yet or not, though.
No, I don't.
Fair
I
enough.
think it's a toss up for me right now. If it's better than Hereditary, which I fucking loved last year.
Yeah, I loved Hereditary.
I can't wait to see more
Still
of this
do.
director, man. He has come out of the gate so strong with these last 2 movies. This movie, it's a brilliant psychological horror, and it's another great example of the stuff I love, which is the slow downward spiral into insanity. That it's a creeping feeling that comes upon you as you get deeper and deeper into this movie. The visuals are incredible. I was horrified watching this movie with some of the scenes. Just a really effective, fun, terrifying summer horror. I loved it.
When I walked out of this movie, I was in a daze for a good couple hours. Because it affected me so, like, deeply.
I'm still.
And I don't know
thinking about
why.
This movie, yeah. I love that it was even.
You
it
keep
was
going, because
effective in being-
I do.
There are a lot of similar movies to this style, but
Wicker Man.
it's this
Original
guy,
Wicker Man.
Yeah, I think the original Wicker Man, is a fair comparison. I've not written down, Josh, because it's it's exactly the same in the sense that it's the protagonist's slow realization that he's in a world that he didn't think he was living in slowly, and it's by the time steps are taken, it's too late. This movie succeeds fantastically in creating a universe or a world, a setting where that is even more imperceptible at the start than seemingly other movies are able to do, where this appears to be just a normal way of life of people that these people are being introduced to, and being picked off slowly was effective and great. And me and my wife saw this, and she was absolutely leaving the theater having seen something that she did not realize she was seeing at the first quarter. And for me, I actually debated putting this higher on my list, but there was just too many other good films this year. I don't know if you saw this, MJ.
Yep, I saw it. I call it in cinema. It just didn't affect me like Hereditary did. That film was pretty fucked up. This film's fucked up as well, but I felt this one goes on and feels a bit meandering, and it gets crazy. Yeah, it gets crazy towards the end, and I felt sometimes I would have liked to have seen what was happening.
That head smashing scene at the start.
Oh man,
I would have liked to have seen what was happening to characters instead of it happening a lot off screen. Maybe I'm split on that.
A lot of my friends have had that complaint that you're saying, where they feel it's a little slower than Hereditary, and it is. But I don't feel it's slower to its detriment. I feel this movie's more patient than itself, and the slowness is planned and affects the end better, where you're in too deep water by the time, and it was the slow descent into it. But I still don't know if it's better than Hereditary. I love it.
I don't think it's better than Hereditary.
A few more
Hereditary
comments.
was excellent.
I love Hereditary. Was my top 4 last year for sure.
Couple more comments real quick from me. I'll still watch his next film, but I need to see these films get a little shorter for me.
You
feel go do something way different too next time, man.
What do you mean by different? Like the dealing with grief and depression and.
That is my
he's got to change it up.
I will be honest.
He's got to change it up. I'd like to see him not do a horror film. Do something completely different.
Yeah.
Crime, something, anything. I don't care. Just not horror. Just get back to that at some point, because I think he's a really talented horror director. But just leave that alone for a bit.
The guy likes to do fucked up family stuff, though.
I feel like after
that's another.
Ari is to like this psychological horror genre for me. What Refn is starting to become, in my opinion, where I wish I'd see something a little different out of them. I really hope he doesn't shoehorn his way or sort of pigeonhole is the term into this sort of type of filmmaking, where I'm starting to hope, after the last thing I saw of Refn, I think there's a comparison to be made here where this is much earlier in Astor's career than it is in Refn's right now, but I really want to see something different. You can't do the same thing again. I agree with Josh. You need to expand a little.
Has anyone saw the director's cut or the extended edition?
No, man. That's what I really want to see, because the issues I had with the film, I feel could potentially be helped in the director's cut, and it's weird to say that like pacing issues could be fixed by the movie being longer, because I think if you stretch things out, some things may make more sense or be more effective. For me, this film had been in my top 10 until about last week. Like, I pulled it out only for a couple of reasons. Of like, I do have those issues from about those pacing issues that might get fixed in the director's cut. I've heard the director's cut does, so I'm like, I will watch it at some point. I still think it's a really, really good film, not as good as Hereditary. I think Florence Pugh is excellent. I think she gives one of the best performances of the year. I think the film's problems are the supporting characters specifically, even the leading characters, aren't really that interesting or memorable. I think the movie is more interested in doing not even the folksy horror stuff. It's definitely a metaphorical story on going through a bad breakup, which again he said in interviews, and if you're not that interested in the horror stuff, why would I be interested in what you're doing with the horror stuff? I don't think the horror stuff is particularly scary. I think it's very memorable. It left me with this feeling, and that's generally what I go when people do these top 10 lists. They always go by like, oh, what I'd rather watch again. But I play that factor in mind, but I also go based off, does the movie stay with me? Do I think about it a long time? Does it evoke a feeling from me? Like Bone Tomahawk, where that feeling stays. And this did, and that's why I was in my list for so long. But the reason I pulled it is I can't remember where I heard it from someone. But I heard this question get raised to me like a week or two ago, and I've just been thinking about it. of if this movie was the exact same movie, but the protagonist, Florence Pugh's character, was a guy, and the other characters were women, like the friends, and the girlfriend was a boyfriend, whatever. The boyfriend was a girlfriend. Sorry. This movie would get absolutely destroyed by people. Like if it was about a guy who, like how this movie wraps up and what the girl does to the guy. If it was a guy doing it to a girl, could you imagine the reaction this movie would get?
Yeah, it's an SJW Warrior point of order for sure.
And I just kept thinking about it. I'm like, wow, yeah, like this is kind of a problematic movie. Because a lot of people like looking at it as a big like feminist thing of like, yeah, like fuck that guy. He deserved what he had coming to him and all the shit 'cause he cheated on her and he was a shitty boyfriend. And I was like,
But that's
those
the
same
thing.
people would turn on this exact same. If it was a girl doing this to a guy and cheated on her boyfriend and was a bitch to him, and then he did this to her, people would be up in arms.
I don't blame
And
the
I just
film
felt
for
like,
that,
why
though.
does it
I blame the people for that.
I don't, but like it's an interesting
Yeah.
question, and I was like, I couldn't shake.
Yeah,
This
it's a
film's
good
a little
example.
problematic.
It's a good example. Yeah, I'd agree. But there's something. If it was just the plot also and what happens, the synopsis of this movie, Aster does have a talented eye. The cinematography in this movie is beautiful. And there was a
definitely.
point when I was
It's-
sitting in the. I mean, it's not the top-notch cinematography by any stretch, and that's not why it's high on my list. It's the feeling. I've said that many times with a couple of my movies.
Yeah, the feeling.
Like that's what wins. But there's a couple points in this movie where, and I'm saying this as a compliment. This is a twisted Wes Anderson scene in some scenes. Like I don't want to give anything away, but the end scene, I thought them sitting around the table eating, and I think it's just it's not the cake. It's just the frosting and the cherry on top that his movies are so well shot as well, in my opinion. And I don't know. I was horrified. I would agree that your argument that the characters aren't interesting is fair. I would sort of agree with that. But what was effective about this movie wasn't losing the characters. I guess it was how they were lost. I didn't find the characters in Hereditary. Let me think about this.
See, I
didn't find them that much more interesting,
Tony
to be honest.
I think Tony Collette's character was way more interesting. He has a problem with supporting characters, I feel like. But then again, I think his movies definitely have a clear protagonist. It's at the beginning of Hereditary, at least, it's Tony Collette, and in this movie it's Florence Pugh. But
I'm reserving my judgment on Aster until I see a third movie of a different type. I'm with him.
I think he's an incredibly talented dude, and I think this is a really well crafted movie. And the complaints people have of like, well, this doesn't make sense. Why would this happen? It's like, well, it's a metaphorical, thematic movie. You know, you got to kind of put aside logic at a certain point and realize what he's trying to do.
And a lot of the criticism from my
accuse
friends has been towards the end as well. It starts to get a little bit
Like it's
metaphorical and a little over artified, as I poorly put many podcasts ago. I was already in and had bought it and was hooked by that point. So I understand it's not for everyone. I think for me it was an obvious choice in my top 5. So number 4, Midsommar, if not Death Proof.
Still honorable mention for me. Criticisms aside, I think it is a really strong movie.
Well, do we want to go into your number 4, Josh?
Sure. My 4 is One Cut of the Dead, which is such a hard film to talk about because I don't want to spoil anything. I got MJ onto this. I think he enjoyed it.
I did not see this.
Directed,
so no spoilers.
Why won't? I'll sell you on it though. It's written, directed by Shinichiro Ueda. This is an independent Japanese film. I think they made it for less than $150,000. It's real cheap. I know that. There's like a 30 to 40 minute literal unbroken take, not a fake one like 1917 or Birdman or whatever. Like this is a legitimate 30 to 40 minute unbroken take, and you're watching a zombie film about a zombie film being made. And you see all like these weird actor choices, or these weird moments, and these strange things that happen, like mistakes. And you're like, that's a little off. Why is that happening? And you're like, okay. And then like something like then something happens 40 minutes in, and you're like, wait, what is going on? And then the movie completely and I mean completely changes gears a third of the way through, and
You've sold it.
Excellent. This is one of the most feel-good movies I've seen all year, and for a movie where you think you're going in watching a zombie film about a zombie film being made, and then it gets even more Inception-y of like the Russian doll thing of like things inside of things, again without spoiling anything. This is one of the most cleverly constructed films in that the second act is clearly defined, and then just as when that second act you feel like, okay, like then it changes gears again, and then the third act is absolutely brilliant, and by the end of this movie I had the biggest smile on my face. As an independent filmmaker who's worked on no budget things, I can relate to so much of this movie, and it filled me with such joy and happiness for something I did not expect going in. I did not pick what this movie ended up being. I love it to death. I think just if you get through that 30-40 minutes and you think it's a certain thing and like, you know, it's a bit shoddy and blah blah blah, it's not at all what you expect. Just keep going with it. It's like Dolomite is my name this year. It's a movie about filmmaking. It's a movie that'll make you happy and put a smile on your face. Unlike some of the other films that are on my list coming up, this is actually a feel-good story, and I can't highly recommend it enough. I just wish I could talk about it, but I can't talk about it without spoiling anything. It's legitimately one of those movies. Like, you have to watch it. It's absolutely superb. Brilliant movie.
Just to piggy off Josh a bit, I saw this film based on his recommendation, and it didn't make my top 10. It was probably 12 or 13. It was just one of those things where when I had to think about this list, I was watching this and I was thinking, what the fuck is Josh smoking, man?
yeah. No. Oh, no.
I was like,
around there, doesn't it?
Yeah, it turns around and it's a lot more heartwarming than I expected. And I was like, yeah, I feel this. I get where they're coming from. And it just depends if that message will kind of speak to you, if you understand those struggles.
Yeah.
And I did really...
I think it'll lose a lot of people in first half hour.
Like...
But if you stick with it, you got to stick with it.
But you have to watch that first half an hour to see how it pays off.
Yes.
Because you're okay, I see where it's happening now. But I was literally fucking confused. I was like, what fucking happening? I was like, oh, we're going to the flashback. And I was like, wait, what? As that flashback was playing, I was like, okay. And I was like, oh, okay. But yeah. Worth checking out.
And a special shout out to, I thought, the leading actress in the movie and the makeup artist in the movie gave the two best performances. I think they were really good. Especially the makeup artist. I think she deserves a little special mention as a supporting actress this year. I think she was really good.
Fair enough. Well, I'm going to get onto my number 4, which was another, Josh recommendation. I don't think you hated it.
Didn't expect this to be so high on your list. No, I liked it. I liked it. Prodigy's not gonna be happy with it.
Well,
I am surprised.
Fuck Prodigy. Well, the thing
Frontier.
is, I just really enjoyed this film. It's one of those things that I was like just gripped throughout. I was like, fuck. And it's like, this to me is probably more of a reaction of what Josh had to Uncut Gems, where you just felt these fuckers were just digging themselves a bigger hole. But you couldn't help but feel like, if I was in that situation, I'm probably digging that fucking hole too.
It does have a doomed mission feel to it, doesn't it?
I don't think it has a doomed mission. I felt like it was going so well, and you're thinking some of these mistakes are going to come back to fucking haunt him. And I felt the characters played out well enough with it, and it took some turns and here and there, and I was like, oh, just fucking so close. And I was like,
But
God,
no cigar.
yeah, it's like, God damn it. And it's one of those films where, again, I hadn't fucking heard about it. I didn't see any marketed. It just was on Netflix, and Josh put up a review, and I was like, fuck it, let's go check it out.
I'd always see it. I'd always see it on my Netflix recommendations, and I'm a huge fan of that director's previous movie, A Most Violent Year with Oscar Isaac. And I was like, fuck it, let's give this a watch. I got nothing else to do today. I'm gonna finally sit down and watch it. I love the first third to a half of it, and if it maintained that, it definitely would have been in contention for my top 10. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I got frustrated by the last half. I didn't hate the last half. I just felt frustrated. I don't know how else to describe it.
I'll piggyback on that. I felt this was Heat in the Jungle for the first half. It was just awesome. Liked.
Well, because I looked at the clock. I looked at I looked at how much more of the movie had to go, and I was like, wait, we're here already? What's the rest of the movie?
Yeah.
I think for me, the first half I loved it. The second half I liked, but it was two completely different feels. Very interesting, not bad.
Agree.
I think the second half probably subtracted from the first half, but I love that first half. And I love the second half too, actually, giving up everything they fought so hard for to just survive. But
that's the thing, you had some interesting turns, but I always understood why characters were doing what they were doing. And I liked the way they was trying to explain it and, what's the word? Justify themselves.
Did you buy Affleck's turn of his character?
I did buy it because he seemed like a guy who wanted to get away from that past because it brought out a different side of him.
Wait,
but at the same time, going into that mission,
where he decides to take the mission. Okay, yeah.
No, not to take the mission. Going into the mission, he's like, "This is we're going in at a certain time. We have this much time. That's it." He's drilling it into all of them. I'm the guy. It's his plan. Well, it's not his plan, but he comes up with the game plan of how to execute it. He's like, "This is it," and then he becomes the most greedy and no, we've got to get more. And I get when you're faced with that situation, sure, but it felt like him and Oscar Isaac's characters switched.
Is the turn you're referring to the giving up of what he held dear halfway through, or 2/3 of the way through?
The turn is just how the character stuff, where he just became he just wanted more money and he didn't care.
I thought that made sense because you saw what his lifestyle was. And it's
a big character arc.
I get that.
Yeah,
that's fine. But Oscar Isaac's character going into it is he's the one who's he wants the money, and then he becomes the one who's more concerned about we've got to get out, man. We've got to leave, and concerned about the lives of everyone else. And then Affleck's character, who seemed to be they switched.
I felt that made more sense because he was more of a leader of the mission, and he's expecting, oh, this guy will keep me on my leash, and he'll be like, we've got to be in and we've got to be out. But as soon as he starts to see the other guy flip, he's like, oh, we're fucked. And the problem is they're probably just expecting to go into a vault, grab the cash and leave, but the fucking money's everywhere. and you're like, shit, how much can we get? Because we were thinking, okay, we'll have a nice sum of money, but it turns into fuck.
The concept of that
money.
The concept in that house of the hidden cash was fantastic.
Yeah.
I love the image of them. The image of them. I mean, how could you not dip your hand back in the cookie jar?
Exactly.
In that situation.
And you're like, fuck it. If they come home, I'll just kill them too.
To the point where they're just carrying 30 bags, 30 duffel bags at the end.
And that's the problem, is that you're like, man, what a ball ache it is to carry this much money now.
The helicopter couldn't fucking lift it. It's beyond metaphorical. A fucking army helicopter couldn't lift the shit that they took out of that house.
But that's why the film made it so high for me, because I understood what was happening, and I was watching it, and it was gripping me, and every decision they was making is I'm fucking making that same decision. There's so much fuck money. Give me all that fuck money. Let's go. But yeah.
I also loved how there could be no strings. They didn't even want to trust her. right?
Yeah.
And they had to go like, no, let's not be those people. We know strings have to be cut, but we try. That's how dangerous that world is.
Yeah.
Even a whisper of what you did will get your family killed. But yeah.
Those
I like that
cheeky
movie.
fucking villagers. But yeah, onto your number 3, Matt. What's your number 3, buddy?
Okay, I don't know if this will be on your list,
Cheeky
but
villages.
my number 3 is Apollo 11. Apollo 11 is
I wanted to see this. I wanted to
Yeah.
see it.
I really love this movie. It's for those of you who don't know what Apollo 11 is, look into your history. First landing on the moon, but this is It's a
If you don't
It's a
know
non.
what this is, then just kill yourself.
Well, it's beyond
Christ's
that, Josh.
sake.
Some people don't even think it's real, but if they do know about it, but this is a non-narrative documentary.
Kubrick directed. Didn't Kubrick direct this?
This is Kubrick, yeah. Actually, if you believe that, in theory, they use his footage in this. If you're interested in
Okay.
history or space exploration or even just time capsule filmmaking of a time and place, this is an absolute must-see. There's no narration. There's no captions. The movie stands on its own. It contains nothing but the images shot of the day, fully remastered. And the movie Choose to Live or Die on those terms. I think it lives on those terms, and it is an incredible watch. You guys need to see this. Sit in the dark, turn up the volume, and just watch. It is an absolutely inspiring movie about if you believe we landed on the moon, and why the hell wouldn't you? This is an inspirational, incredible thing, and you have no option but to leave watching this movie inspired by humanity and what we're capable of, and the absolute needle threading that was landing on the moon. Fucking incredible.
Spoken like a
it's-
true
The
American.
greatest.
It's solely
I mean,
comprised.
it's the greatest.
It's solely
It's
comprised
the
of
greatest
just
accomplishment
NASA footage.
by,
They
it's
released
the
footage
greatest
they've never
accomplishment
released
we've
before.
ever done.
I found
As
it
a
fascinating
species,
that
this is our.
we'll never top this until we get out there again. In my opinion, I'm a space science guy.
Well, we
that-
will eventually, if we
well,
get
until
to
we get
another
out there
planet.
again. Till we get out there again, which we left this. I mean, we're getting into politics and history here, but we've left this behind only a few years after this happened, and we haven't been back in 40, 50 years. So, and this came on the 50th anniversary to the day of landing.
Wow.
Yeah.
They released it on Amazon.
really,
There's been a lot of
disappointed,
moon. There's been a lot of moon documentaries this summer because of that 50th anniversary. Same with Woodstock. It's the 50th anniversary of that. So I've been seeing a lot of movies and docs on both of them. This one transcends all of that. This is one of the best movies of the year. You guys need to watch this. It is fantastic.
I didn't see many documentaries this year like I do some years, but this is one I wanted to see. I'm disappointed I didn't get to see it on the big screen, but I'll check it out because I'm fascinated by the moon landing stuff. I only saw I didn't see it. I haven't seen the whole movie. I saw like the last half hour of First Man, and even that I was like, man,
First
this is
Man,
just like
Ryan Gosling last
again.
year,
I've heard
right?
mixed
Armstrong?
things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Heard mixed things. The last half hour riveted me. I'm like, well, I need to actually go back and watch this. But Apollo 11, it's been on my list of things I want to watch. I just haven't had the chance.
Just
again,
watch it with the lights
did you
off
see
and the
this on
volume
the?
up. I
Did you
saw it
watch
on
at the cinema
Amazon.
or
I
not?
watched it on Amazon. I didn't see it in
Okay.
the theater. or
'Cause I've
anything like
heard-
that.
I've heard the theater experience is even better. Like it's just
The sound and the
Crazy
remaster.
stuff.
There's footage they've never released before. Besides all the moon landing stuff, it's fascinating to see in high def just what
They
life
get
was
into
50 years ago. There's shots of like crowds showing up to watch the rocket launches
Yeah.
in Cape Canaveral, Florida,
They get-
and you just get to see like
Did
as
they
if
get
it was
into
shot in high res IMAX cameras, what people were wearing, what businesses looked like, what cars were, what cameras and tech and glasses they were wearing. It's just fascinating shit.
Did they get
awesome.
into the trip back?
Yes, absolutely. It goes right till they touch water. So it's
Yeah.
the full journey. Again, no narration. Most of
Yeah.
most of the dialogue is just Houston transmissions to the capsule and to the three guys and
Yeah.
back again. And it tells the story
It's just
through
relying on
through that audio. You got to watch this. It's fantastic.
It's just relying on the historical nature of the event tells the story itself.
Right. And I know this is very...
It is, like...
This isn't everyone's taste, these documentaries, and it is niche. I know it's a very small segment of the movie-going population that is into these hardcore docs, but this says more than just what happened. It has a lot of, like, the qualities of these non-narrative documentaries that are so... And you'll laugh at me because I won't pronounce this right, but I've seen it multiple times. The Koyaanisqatsi movie from the 82 about, like, Earth and humanity, and the Baraka, those excellent examples of fantastic sometimes those are more effective than just having, you know, a narrator over top, like a Morgan Freeman or a Matt Damon talking over what happened and just letting the images speak for themselves. And in the world, in our history as a species, is there any imagery more crazy than the moon landing stuff? This is a perfect way to do it. So you guys got to watch this. It's not long either. I think it's if it's an hour and a half, I'd be surprised. It's not that long. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, it's the greatest achievement we've ever done as humanity. Yeah. So, like,
and we need
people should watch it.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Moving on to Josh's number 3.
My number 3 is The Nightingale, directed by Jennifer Kent. She made The Babadook, which made my top 10 that year, but I think this is even better. I think this is a masterpiece. I think it's one of the greatest Australian films ever made. About a terrible, like, this is an incredibly tough movie to watch, and I don't say that lightly. Like, I heard a lot of things about this movie, about people walking out. This is, again, critics, and about how brutal the first, like, 20 minutes of this movie are. And I'm like, okay, like, I can deal with some pretty hard shit. This shook me up. Like, people in my theater, I could hear them audibly sobbing in the first 15-20 minutes, because it is just so... Dude, this movie is like, it deals with some pretty brutal and harsh subject matter, but never does it in an exploitative way. It's very raw and honest and respectful to the victims, because it deals with this young Irish immigrant living in it used to be called New Demon's Land, but it's Tasmania now in Australia. Okay. And she gets raped by this British officer played by Sam Claflin, who's terrific, brilliantly cast, because he's like this dude who's in a lot of like rom-coms, so he's like this handsome guy, and he plays one of the most despicable, evil human beings I've ever seen in a movie. And then it gets more brutal from there. Like, her husband and child are murdered, and she's raped, and then it deals with her seeking revenge, and she gets this young Aboriginal tracker, and it goes into that with like a lot of the treatment that our Indigenous people here have gone through, and it's a film that feels incredibly like raw and dangerous. Like, anything can happen at any time. There's violence around every corner, and the fact that you've got this young girl and an Aboriginal man traveling together through this land where both of them aren't safe, because usually with these a kind of movie like this, you're paired with, like, you know, a strong man who can like protect you or hide or whatever. Like, you can't. You're both weak, but they have each other. Again, this is just a brutal movie. I think Aisling Franciosi, who plays the lead, gives the best performance, male or female, this year. I think the fact that her and Jennifer Kent aren't... She's in a show called The Fall. It had Irish show, yeah. It has I forgot the name. I love her so much, from X-Files. Terrific show. She's great in that. But I think the fact that her and Jennifer Kent aren't getting any talk about Oscars, when I heard people complaining that Greta Gerwig didn't get nominated at the Golden Globes, I was like, you got to be kidding. Like, if any woman should be getting a director nomination, it's Jennifer Kent, and if any woman should get nominated and win for Best Actress this year, it's this girl. She's phenomenal. The things that she has to go through in this film and deliver, it's it's crazy, and I think it's one of the most beautifully shot films as well. It's like some of it's surreal, some of it's raw and brutal, and the entire cast top to bottom are great, but she's just a standout. I thought she blew me away. The movie blew me away. This was not an enjoyable experience. It's definitely high warning for people going into it. Like, don't, like, if you're incredibly sensitive, don't watch this movie because it's
parental guidance.
One of the more.
I gotta say, I'm pissed.
Yeah,
This
brutal.
wouldn't load
Brutal.
for me, and I ran out of time. I wanted to. I was seeing your guys' conversation about this one and your opinions, and it was my next one queued up, and I couldn't get it, so it was on to the next. And it's your top 3, so I'll be watching this. Would you say it's darker?
Yeah.
Well, it sounds darker from your synopsis than Monios. Like it's that's pretty dark.
It's way dark.
Yeah.
It's about 3 times darker than that, 10 times darker than that. The stuff you see in this movie is just it's tough to watch. Like incredibly
Requiem for a
tough to
Dream
watch.
stuff.
Shakes
Requiem
you
for a
up.
Dream stuff. Yeah.
It shook me up worse than that. Like,
No,
I mean,
no.
I've got people in my life, like women who have been, including a former partner of mine who was sexually assaulted or raped or whatever. Like, so, again, it affected me on that level. But I think it's just, man, it's just harsh. And what the Aboriginals go through in this film is tough, and it's just honest. Like, this stuff happens all the time. I think it's a masterpiece. I don't know if I can say I love it. I don't, but I think it's
Top 3 is pretty strong.
Just an
Josh.
incredible movie.
Yeah.
I mean, when I watched it, the feeling I kept getting about the film, while it reminded me of another film, it's probably nothing like it, but the style it's shot, I didn't feel like this film is very color graded or anything. It just looks, where you have the 90s films and it just looks like film processed without any color grading on it now, like you see these days.
The movie like this poster, like color grading style.
Nothing like it.
No. Okay.
That poster makes it look a lot more dramatic than it actually.
Right.
That's like an
It's not
action
graded
poster.
down, like, yeah.
I wanted to use another one, but I was like, oh, this one will do. But it reminded me of Last of the Mohicans.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Just with like the style of it all. And this is where it confused me because I didn't know where the fuck this was taking place because I thought it was taking place in Ireland at first. And I was like, what are they referencing to in regards to blacks? Like, maybe my Irish history is out of fucking window because, being English, we've pissed off a lot of people. So I lose track of, where we're at. And then I was
we're
like,
the colonies.
yeah.
Josh, the colonies.
And I was like, oh, okay. And then it's like, oh, Australia. Because I was like, oh, it's like, this black man sounds like kind of Aussie. And it's like, so we're not in, where Zulu is. It's like, okay, so we're in Australia. And then the convict's like, okay, now that starts to make sense. And referencing, like, the hero. Not the hero, but who would be a heroic figure in another film if he wasn't a rapey asshole. It reminded me of Robb Stark from Game of Thrones, like the actor. Because he just
Sam
sounded...
Claflin you're talking about, right?
Yeah, he just sounded very similar to him, and I was like, damn, this guy's fucked.
The other guy in this that should get a little mention is Damon Harriman, who plays his second in command. He plays I hate him. Oh, he's so good, but the character I hate him.
Yeah.
But he plays Charles Manson in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and in
Oh wow, that's who he fucking is.
Oh, interesting.
Damn.
Okay.
But I felt like the villains got too cartoonish towards the end, and it started to take me out of the film because they go in a direction where I'm seeing like the villains as more three-dimensional, like they don't view people as human, and I thought that was important to note. And what this film does well, and I have to commend it on, is even our heroes are very inhumane to one another.
She says a lot of questionable shit to him.
Yeah, And
to the indigenous character, and him back to her as well.
And that's stuff I applaud because I'm like, oh, it's not like, oh, I feel you, I understand you. It's more like, fuck you, take me there. And like, it's brutal, and people are not very nice to one another. And the one time they actually get a nice favor in return, they're kind of fucking in shock. They just can't take it.
Yeah, I know that's yes. That one little glimmer of kindness, even me as an audience member, it's like, it's a relief because you're just surprised. Like, it's just nothing but dread, and then there's this little glimmer.
And
it's
great. One of those things.
How do you rate? I have two questions for you, just quickly, about how do you rate her performance, and how did you react to the opening 20 minutes?
See, this is what I always find hard. Her performance is fine, and the reason I have to say that is like,
fine.
This is what gets me. So
you just got slapped down with a fine.
No, because I find, like, you know, where you get those like Oscar bait films where someone plays a character to do this. This might be controversial, but I find for women characters, if they play a character who gets raped, it seems to be like easy to mine material. Like,
but I've never seen it done like, or portrayed this like this.
That's another thing I wanted to say was well done, was like, you see a lot of rape things, or you hear a lot of rape things. Why'd you stop fighting? And you can see why, because she
lost. Like,
but she just,
the will.
You just see soul leaving body.
Leave body.
Like, you know, it's like, I get that. And you see what these people are capable of, and that's the thing. It shocks me how fucked everything is, because if I was in charge in those days, a lot of fuckers being hung up. Like, I'll find out you do this.
When you hear that head hit wall, you could have heard a pin drop in my theater.
But that's the thing. It felt almost. Maybe I have to rewatch that scene again. That felt almost cartoony.
I don't know. That hit me hard.
Yeah, it hits you hard, but for me, it takes quite a lot to kind of shock me in a film. Seeing something in person and seeing it in a film, because the baby looks like the fucking baby from American Sniper.
No, I don't know.
And that's what gets me. That's what gets me. Now,
that
the dressing of the scene with the sound of the baby crying, and that baby crying is the fucking equivalent of the kettle boiling. It's like shit's about to fucking hit. And that's the problem. Like, her performance is good,
Literally.
but exactly. Her performance is good, fine, but I find it's easy material for someone to make something out of.
I mean, that's fair.
I also think the director has a cameo in this film as well. I'm pretty sure. She's in the cart, and she
I can't remember.
gives a coin, and she says, yes, you can ride the back.
Okay.
I think that's...
I mean, you've seen it more recently than I have. Maybe. I mean, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong.
Yeah, but again, the film was fine. I felt like the film had 4 acts, and it felt a little long-winded, especially for a film that's kind of short. I think it's 110 minutes or just less than 2 hours, and it goes through certain structures. I thought, this is going to make my top 10, and then I was like, oh, it's just falling out of the top 10 because it had pacing issues. It just kept going on and on for me. And then the character kind of, we get to that pivotal moment, it's like, what the fuck are you doing? And I was like, I didn't feel that her kind of pussing out was earned. Because I didn't...
Hey, don't spoil this movie for Matt.
Yeah.
He hasn't seen it.
He's too busy on his phone.
No, my phone's going crazy.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I had a question for Josh. Is it? It's a period piece, obviously, but is there any history of the wider world of Australia at the time in it, or is it more of like a smaller world within the history? Because I am fascinated. My wife's from Australia. I'm fascinated with her history, and she's fascinated with Canadian history. And
it's a smaller part of our history.
Yeah.
Again, it's not based off an actual story, but I'd imagine
Historical
this
fiction.
is based
Yeah.
off a lot of different stories.
Would you say
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
more a slice of life, like what you would expect if you was on
Yeah.
the wrong side of the population?
I'd say so. This is
Yeah,
probably,
cool.
unfortunately, what a lot of people had to go through.
Yeah, that's crazy. Oh, I can't wait. I mean, it sounds fucking miserable. It sounds
Well.
depressing as hell, but hey.
Let's pick this up then and move on to my number 3, because this film is actually quite uplifting.
Oh wow! I gotta see this then. I gotta see this.
We've already spoke
Nice.
about it. Dragged Across Concrete. Really enjoyed this film, and I saw that it was eligible for my top 10 for that year. I was like, easy, slotting in. My top 3 are probably all interchangeable. I'd probably have this as number 2, really, when I come to explain number 2, because I had more issues with number 2. But I saw the second one in the cinema, and is pretty great experience in the cinema. And I wish I'd have seen Concrete in cinema, maybe, but I feel these films aren't as widely released, or they're just fucking in some small cinema, and that's the problem. Do we want to move on to your second film, Matt?
Yeah. So before I go into what number 2 and 1 is, I'm really excited to hear what you guys have, because for me, the top 10 this year, the top 2, there was no question. These 2 were by far my favorites.
Oh, I know. I
and,
fucking know this. Josh and
do you know
Matt
what
are
these
the
are?
same. Yeah.
No, my number 2 is Parasite. Parasite is it's a comedy, it's a drama, it's a psychological horror, it's a thriller, it's suspense. It is everything. This movie is fantastic, and I encourage everyone who loves movies to see this, because having watched it, it turned very quickly from an honorable mention for me as going into a number 9 to a number 7, and then getting to this point halfway through the movie where everything turns on its head and going to a 4 and then a 3 and a 2. This movie just keeps getting better and better and better as it goes on, and it is fantastic. The acting, the direction. This is completely subtitled. I don't want to make an ass of myself here. I didn't research it too much because I went on right to this movie, but it's Korean, South Korean film, completely subtitled. Do not let that scare you away from this. I promise you, do not be intimidated by the subtitles. This is worth.
I'd say this is close to being the most oh god, just having a brain fade right now. It's the most accessible South Korean film. If I was going to show a Korean movie to someone, I'd probably show them this.
I don't have much history
I love
with
South,
the genre
at
all.
I love South Korean cinema. It's my favorite in any country in the last 20 years.
If this is the gateway drug to South Korea, this has got me hooked.
I'll give you some recommendations after the show.
The script, the plot is brilliant. It's weaving. It's riddled with direct U-turns and surprises and twists all the way to the end. I can't stress enough how this movie is everything, but what it is at its core, and which I've said with a couple of movies, and I think you get a sense of what I love in movies, is movies that they tell their own story, but they also, at the same time, they pull back the curtain on how life really is for some people, and how it's able to do both so well. Like, for example, this movie is its own fiction, but it says so much about poverty and wealth and socioeconomic disparity and class differences and the way we lie to ourselves and we lie to other people to get ahead in life or just to live day to day. It's I don't know what else to say. I don't want to give anything away in this movie because it's giving any piece of any part of the synopsis away is sort of depriving you of the joy that I had going in without knowing anything about it. It's a subtitled South Korean movie, but you guys need to see it out there. You need to watch this, and I promise you, hang in there till the end, because the start is slow, and it doesn't seem like much, but it is a snowball rolling downhill. And I gotta say, Josh,
I
you
disagree about the start being slow.
I think it's...
I completely disagree about the start being slow.
Okay. Yeah, I think the movie only got better for me as it went on, is sort of what I'm trying to get at. And I have to say this, Josh, you talked about a head thump. You talked about a head thump rocking your theater in Nightingale. I immediately thought of a scene in this where it shook the laptop off my bed. It was absolutely... I wish I could have seen this in the theater. I know. It's just... this movie deserves more. I wish I could have seen this or known about it sooner. Parasite. Go see it, guys. By far one of my favorite movies of the year.
It's number 2, isn't it? So it must be.
Number 2, yeah.
So, Josh, do we want to get into your second?
Number 2?
Yep.
Yeah. The Lighthouse by director Robert Eggers. Written by him and his brother Max. Are you going to put this... Yeah, there you go, MJ. I was buying you some time. Slow on the count there. This is what MJ was referencing as the Mandy of 2019. I was a huge fan of Robert Eggers' first movie, The Witch, or The Witch. I think it was my number 1 film of 2016, actually. I loved it. I don't want to say I like this one better. I'm not sure. I have to watch it a few more times before I can say that. But I was thoroughly entertained. When I saw the trailer for this, I needed that movie in my life immediately. And the movie definitely lived up to expectations. Wasn't at all what I expected. It was much funnier than I thought it was going to be. And it was much more abstract and surreal. It's very similar in tone to The Shining. And then you can't really say that about too many movies. But it's got a bit of Ingmar Bergman about it. It's got a bit of Carl Dreyer about it. Who was this Danish director who made Passion of Joan of Arc. He made Vampire. It's got a bit of similarities stylistically to Nosferatu, which I know is, I think, his favorite movie. And he's talking about remaking it again.
Is that in regards to the cinematography, or?
Yeah, like the visual style of the film. I mean, it's got all like the pretentious art house bullshit that I usually like, and then I get called. What did I used to get called by that one guy? I can't even remember.
A bitch boy.
We'll just go with like not you. That's what you call me. But I love this movie. But I was surprised about how unpretentious it is, because it's got fart jokes and all this weird stuff. A bit like in Fabric, where I was expecting it to be like a certain thing, and I was surprised at how funny I found the movie.
Yeah.
I think Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe give 2 of the best performances of the year. At a certain point, you just forget that you're watching 2 actors that you have like a bit of a history with, and you just are watching these 2 people interact with each other, and it just gets weird. Like this weird toxic masculinity that's going on, and I don't say that in an SJW way, just like that is what would happen with 2 guys alone, isolated on an island in a lighthouse. I love all like the phallic imagery, and I think it is dealing a lot with like ideas of masculinity, and goes into a lot of like Greek mythological stuff. It's got a lot of interesting things it's dealing with, a lot of stuff that I haven't fully grasped on a first viewing. But again, a bit like in Fabric, I love all the artistic part of it, but it's the humor that really won me over. And I've mentioned this a couple of times for other films, namely Monos and Irishman, but I love the last shot of this movie. Love it. It's one of the best films of the year. It's just a work of mad genius. It feels like a film ripped out of time. Again, a bit like In Fabric, a bit like Luz. This is just... It feels like a film from a different era, and not in a rip-offy, like, let's be nostalgic for the sake of it. It just feels like... And apparently he did shoot this on old school film cameras and old school lighting, and didn't use anything from before, like, the 1920s. Like, he used the earliest lighting stuff and cameras that he could get his hands on, and I think the cinematography is some of the best of the year.
Yeah.
The score is hypnotic and just adds to this surreal nature of the film. Again, it might be a masterpiece. This might be another one. I think it's just a work of mad genius, man.
This shit always blows my mind, because I'll let Matt speak in a second, because I just watch these films and I'm like, what the fuck am I not seeing, man? Because I'm like, I always feel like I'm having a troll job being done to me, and you just
see. Look, I wanna
unwilling
say
to like
here.
let the joke go. You're like fucking method actors. Like, I'm fucking staying in character for the rest of my life. That this film's a phenomenal film, just to fuck up MJ.
Look. When I told you to watch it, I didn't know if you. I actually thought you wouldn't like it, but I didn't say it was one of the movies you'd like. I said you have to watch it.
Yeah, I was like, this fuck. I could have watched another film. I could have watched Sparrow Creek or Dolomite, and I was like, I ended up fucking watching this because she says you have to watch it. We could have just had a real short conversation instead, and you could be like, The Lighthouse, and be like, oh, I'll check it out later. But fuck me, man. The best thing about this was the cinematography. I just did not give a fuck about the rest. It just felt like meandering bullshit that you guys will eat up. You're like,
This is so
exactly
funny.
what I love.
It's so silly.
But
Silly.
But I just feel like my time's being wasted. I'm like, what the fuck's going on?
You like my lobster, don't you?
Fuck.
I know you like my lobster.
Fuck it. Matt, come on. Come get your...
I gotta be honest, like, I had this in my top 10. I liked it, but I had to make some changes. So
Wait, really?
I'll talk about it at the end, and we'll go through it. But the movie's great.
Whoa.
It's great.
Wait, what's your number one?
Oh.
Well, we'll wait till we review it.
Wait, we'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, like, I don't want to give anything away.
So I'll get to my second top film of the year then. Wait. Fucking... Yep, it is my turn for fucking some reason. So my second was this. Ad Astra. Saw it in the cinema. Really enjoyed it. I had some issues towards the end, but I love science fiction films, and I loved the feeling of the film. It's hard to describe, but the film just has an atmosphere or a feeling, and I loved seeing how certain things played out. I loved seeing the moon action sequence, and I thought it built up that part of the world well enough, and it's like, that's pretty damn cool. I liked how they acknowledged that we move forward in space and we wanted to leave this shit behind, but we just bring it all with us. We bring Starbucks, this fucking brands with us, and now we've got it on the fucking moon. And I thought we were beyond this. And it shows like maybe the darker side of what humanity and going further into the stars is. Probably like be anti to what Matt wants to see in future. I bet he can't wait to see like Walmart on the moon. But it's just interesting things going on in this film, and it had a few sequences I really loved. I enjoyed seeing how they built up Brad Pitt's character at the beginning with this like low heart rate, shit doesn't faze him and he can get the job done, and you see how other characters just fall off because they just can't keep that kind of momentum with him. And then when he eventually does start to falter, it's like, boy, we know we're in for a bit of an interesting ride now. But again, enjoyed this film. Number 2 for me. Any other thoughts, lads?
I had... Go ahead. You go ahead. No, you can
I
go
really,
for
I really enjoyed this as well, MJ, and it's for a lot of the reasons you said that it differs from my hopefulness of space and stuff. This movie really delved into some hardcore sci-fi stuff that is fresh, and it's definitely not the stuff at the end where it lost it for me. It's the stuff in the first quarter where we get to see a natural resources divided moon with world powers that have co-colonized. That is fantastic. You don't see much of that in sci-fi. I mean, beyond the allegorical Star Wars stuff and Battlestar Galactica, but this is real world hardcore sci-fi, like China or Russia colonized the other side, and you're seeing real wars in geopolitical context that we have now. It's awesome. You don't see anything like that other than, I would say the closest I've seen to that is 2010, the year we make contact, where they go to Jupiter with the Russians and they got to only separate because there's a war back on Earth, like the 2001 sequel. This is hardcore. This is politics extended to Mars, and arguably probably the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
Sadly, and I thought that was awesome. The only reason this movie started to fall off for me was as it started to get towards this. For me, what was a really shallow, surface level sort of Tommy Lee Jones world and universe. I really wanted to dive into more of what was going on there rather than just meeting him and dealing in a climax with the problem of his storyline. I really wanted to delve into more of that. We didn't get to see him till the end, and I wanted more. That's all. But the first half, absolutely in my top 5 for the year, and it's for all the reasons that this was a true sci-fi.
I think we've lost communication with Moonbase. Moonbase, are you there?
Well, I'll jump in. So, I admired this movie more than I liked it.
Yeah.
There are parts of it I thought were really, again, some really interesting, unique ideas. Like Matt said, like the idea of colonizing the moon, the idea of Starbucks, all this stuff. Like, I found it as soon as I clicked early, I was like, oh, this is Apocalypse Now in space.
Yeah.
I was like, right, like I kind of see where this is going. So the last half detracted for me again. The most effective and I thought the most brilliant scene in the film was the chase on the moon with like the pirates or whatever
Fucking
coming after him.
loved
I thought that was phenomenal. Again, there are sequences in this movie that I really enjoyed and elements, and I really thought aesthetically it was brilliant, incredibly well made. It just left me cold. I didn't feel anything about it. It's a movie that I saw it in theaters as well. When did it come out? Like September, October?
September.
Something around that. I haven't really thought about it since.
Yeah. Well,
It's gotten less and less in my memory. Like, again, I think it's a really, really well made film. Just, I admire the technical aspects, and emotionally it didn't make me feel anything.
See, as much as I enjoy Interstellar, I almost felt like this was the film that he wanted to make.
This is better.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Nolan would have wanted to have made this film, because even though this drops the ball at the end, it doesn't drop it probably as much as Interstellar does. So yeah, really high thoughts.
What did you think of? Because we've got to keep stalling here.
Yeah.
What do you think of Brad Pitt's character, like his performance in this, and if you want to contrast it with his performance in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is the one getting more praise? Like, how do you rate it? Because I actually think he was terrific. I think this is one of his best performances.
Like, this pretty much revolves around his character. I don't understand why there's so much high praise in Once Upon a Time. I feel like that's more your standard Brad Pitt affair. I felt like he was more of a pretty boy in Once Upon a Time. Maybe my mind's a bit hazy on that one. Whilst this, I actually brought him as like some military guy just on a mission, and he's got a chink in his armor, and that's his dad, and he wants to find out why things happened the way they happened and stuff like that. I wasn't a fan of the ending. I'm going to get into the ending. And this is why I always have an issue. You make such...
Spoilers.
Yep, spoilers. You make such a big issue of getting from point A to point B that when he arrives home fucking like it's nothing by the end of the film, I'm like, oh, that was fucking easy. Like, why didn't he just do that in the first case? Because he goes through hell just to get from the moon, from moon base A to moon base B.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, he just fucking gets home, like from wherever the fuck he is.
That bothered
the pit stop at the space station. I felt like it was more than just a pit stop in the movie. I could have used that time out on Neptune. I really wish I like the Tommy Lee Jones character, his dad. The storyline's so fascinating. I really feel like there was wasted time in the middle, and I wanted to add that to the end. All that stuff. There's so many questions. I mean, that's what a sci-fi is supposed to do.
I was expecting more, not the ending of, but I was expecting like something Arrival-like with actual aliens.
Something out there, because that was his mission. That's not a spoiler. That's the whole crux of the whole. What do they call it? Spacecom. That's Spacecom's whole goal, really, is humanity's focused on, or at least North American Spacecom has focused on, finding this. There's been a purpose, a drive. So I love the intro, by the way, the crawl, the very Blade Runner-y crawl. I liked how that is. Remember we said in Star Wars podcast last week, that. I think you guys agreed with me. I prefer hardcore sci-fi because of the established rules, right? There's a crawl in Star Wars, but it's definitely a fantasy. It's a space fantasy, a space opera. The difference between that and this, or that type of sci-fi and this, is clear in the crawl or the opening scene. There's established rules. You go for it, and it follows its own rules very closely throughout the... I really like that opening title card, or whatever you call it.
What I would recommend to you, Matt, I need to finish watching it because I'll cancel Disney Plus and I'll get Apple TV Plus just to finish off the show. For All Mankind on Apple TV Plus, check that out. You might really enjoy that. I think that's kind of up your alley. You'll probably really dig that. But on to what's right up your alley.
Well,
do you want to...
Wait. Oh. I think let's quickly recap our 10 to 2s.
Are you sure? Because I thought this was going to be like, a 1 hour show.
Oh, this has been a quick.
That's what I thought. This has been a quick lean. We've already turned this into an epic.
I was going to say at the end. I was going to say this has been a quick lean 1 hour. We're on hour 4 here soon. Okay, do you want me to start, Josh, or
Yeah, just do a quick recap. I think about
my number 10 was The King. The King. Number 9 was Marriage Story. Number 8 was The Report. Number 7 was Monos. Number 6 was Light of My Life. Number 5 was Uncut Gems. Number 4 was Midsummer. Number 3, Apollo 11. And number 2 was Parasite.
Very good. My list is number 10, Starfish. Number 9, Lose. Number 8, Uncut Gems. Number 7, In Fabric. Number 6, Dragged Across Concrete. Number 5, The Irishman. Number 4, One Cut of the Dead. Number 3, The Nightingale. And number 2, The Lighthouse.
MJ, you're supposed to be switching the photos.
I can't keep up with how fast you guys are going to be going. I was like, fuck that.
I'm just kidding.
You go, MJ.
I was like, the people-friendly list of the year. Endgame, JoJo, Ford vs. Ferrari, El Camino, The King, Marriage Story, Triple Frontier, Dragged Across Concrete, and Ad Astra.
See, I think we've got incredibly diverse and interesting lists across the board. In that, MJ's has got the nice little fan-friendly one that all the people listening will probably like, and it'll be on their top 10s. Then you got me, who's got all the weird, independent, low-budget, weird shit, pretentious bullshit, and then Matt kind of falls in the middle and has about a good mix.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to
So
describe it. Has this been your guys' most diverse top 10 yet?
Yeah, because
top
mine
10
was
episode?
pretty much Josh's top 10 last year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at mine, like, I've got 1, 2, 3 foreign language, by the looks of it. Wait. Sorry, 3 foreign language. I got, like, a movie from Australia, England, Germany, Japan, and one I won't spoil yet. But, yeah, so, like, mine's a very all over the place list.
It's crazy
Yeah.
for
I
me.
think what my list shows is probably Netflix's actual player in the game. I think they've got 3 of my top 10. And I also think it's surprising, outside of Endgame, if I'd have put something ahead of Endgame, there'd have been no like super blockbuster in my list. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, that can probably speak to how fucked Rise of Skywalker is that it didn't make any of our lists. Which is,
Well, how do you
watch
know? How do you know?
I fucking know. Like,
How do you know it didn't make my list?
I will be gobsmacked if it made your list.
I made a last-minute change.
Would you?
It's
I'm
a
more
limited.
shocked.
Let's
Would
find
you be
out.
more shocked if I had it.
Mate, I'd
Yeah, let's go to
die.
Matt's list.
What's your
What's
number
your
one,
number
Matt?
one?
Because if I haven't got a
MJ's
picture
gonna
for
have
us,
to yeah, you're fucked. Oh, jeez.
Well, yeah, this, like I
Here we
said,
go.
my top 2 were no question. I struggled with
jumping the gun there.
that. You're assuming, MJ.
that's the only one left. I was like, it has to be, right? But man,
Well, on the list
he's been
I gave
dragging
it
it
is.
down. But sneaky? Is he trying to do
My
a
number
thing?
1, 2019 is.
Great, now you're going to get copyright strikes. You just ruined the show, Matt. 3 hours of our life down the drain.
It is The Lighthouse. Lighthouse is the best movie I saw this year. I loved this movie.
I can't believe you couldn't have said this with fucking Josh, and I have to live through it twice.
Well, way to take. Well, I was kind of like, way to take the steam out of, or the wind out of my sails by. Come on, man, you got to give me my surprise for number 1. I think. Come on, this movie. I can't disagree with you more, MJ, about this movie. This movie, I don't know what it was, but from start to finish, it was mesmerizing. I could not take my eyes off the screen for the entire time.
I'm just sorry, I've got to interrupt. I have to see yours and Josh's private communications because I know you like to do a bit of trolling yourself, and it's like, you
I
sneaky
think,
boys.
Josh, you admit, Josh, you had no idea what my list was going to be, right? Correct?
I had
Just
zero
completely-
idea.
Yeah. The Lighthouse, man. This, Josh, MJ, you have to admit that this movie is a spiraling staircase, no pun intended, down.
I was like,
just
literally.
absolute. It's so funny, Josh,
that
that
pun
you
was
compared
intended,
this.
wasn't
I wanted to talk to you, Josh, when you were talking about it, but I wanted to reveal it as my number 1 and talk about it then. But it's so funny you brought up Kubrick or it's The Shining, because the one thing I put here in big capital letters on my notes was this was with fully complimentary when I say this. It's about as much praise as I can say it. This is very Kubrickian, this movie. It has the feel of The Shining in the best way possible. It has the feel of 2001: A Space Odyssey, not the plot, but the descent into madness of a surreal supernatural setting. This movie is all of that.
I mean,
This movie
I think
is
there's like
everything
a good.
you want.
There might be a little subtle reference to The Shining in the axe scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you get that feel with, and I think it's even more of a resemblance, simile to 2001 when the light. I don't want to give anything away, but in the end, the resolution
Why?
just before the resolution
Yeah,
very
that's actually a
shining.
good
The
point.
last scene is very shining, and then the second last scene is very 2001 Star Child stuff or the wormhole. But I can't heap enough praise on this movie. I mean, it's everything you want in a psychological horror. Everything. It's It's in an isolated, brutal environment. It sets the perfect tone from the first minute. It's brilliant. The score is haunting. It keeps you unnerved and on the edge of your seat every minute. And it's a slow descent into madness.
Too is, the sound is incredibly important because you do genuinely feel like they are like these storms are really happening, and like you feel like the storms outside. You can hear them, you can feel them. Like it adds so much to like that isolation and the descent into madness that these characters are going through too, and the inner storm that the character is going through on the inside.
I mean, this is a black and white film. It's a black and white film it's in the dark, a black and white film. It's going to be hard for me to talk people into watching this movie, unfortunately. And like most good movies, maybe it's a best kept secret and screw the rest. But this movie succeeds on every level. Every level. The acting, the tone, the direction is incredible. The setting. They built that lighthouse for this movie, eh? They built it.
Wow.
That's a set. That's a set.
I don't know.
I mean, unless my sources are wrong, that is a set. I mean,
so the
setting. It's man against nature. Sorry, go ahead.
They may have built it, but where they were, that was a real place off Nova Scotia, as far as I heard. But I don't know if the lighthouse may have been.
I was going to say they mentioned Canada. It's filmed in Nova Scotia on the East Coast, but they mentioned Canada in this movie, and there's another movie that mentions Canada in my top 10 this year. Can't remember. I was going to bring that up earlier. But like I said, like at every level of this, I mean, it's funny. The script is incredible. The acting goes without saying. I just all these praise has been heaped on by everyone else, so I hate to pile it on, but this movie's awesome. This is an incredible movie.
I do want to watch. I want to watch this movie with subtitles. There are some parts of it I'm like, what are they saying?
Yeah, there's stuff that leaves you. I mean, it's not it leaves you with so many questions about his past, and without giving anything away. But I have a
question. Is Willem Dafoe? Is Willem Dafoe's character really there?
Well, that's
this all in his head.
That's the thing. If this movie goes as deep as you want it to,
is it two parts of the same person?
It goes as deep as you want it to. If you want to do it that way, go as deep as you can. It's there. But if you just let's say you stripped away everything, all the deeper reading into it critically, it's even the surface level stuff. Even the surface level stuff is incredible. I mean, if you just took it just as a maddening tale of two men losing their minds on a long haul, in isolation, that's good enough for me.
Look at
it's got all these other layers.
A few of these, the movies on my list of like Dragged Across Concrete or The Irishman, and then this, it's about machismo, it's about masculinity, and like this is like the height of toxic masculinity. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't, like I said when I was talking about it earlier, of like it's not in a social justice warrior like men are evil kind of thing. It's just like it really is exploring those themes.
It's why I say
and I think a very interesting way.
I hate to I don't want to. It's very. Some people would call it sacrilegious to compare anything to. I understand that because I'm a huge Kubrick fan, but for me, that's the most amount of praise I can give it because only very few guys can do this sort of thing where it's man versus man versus nature, man versus the supernatural. It's everything, and it's awesome. And you have more questions leaving than you went in with, but not frustratingly. It's the way it should be with The Shining and 2001 and all these. It had a little bit of everything. You said it very well, Josh.
There's a lot of Bergman influences on there as well.
Yeah, it's
like a lot of the things.
It wears a lot of it.
Yes. With in his movies.
Yes. I mean, I do understand some criticisms. Like I said with Munoz, it has a lot of influences. I don't know that it wears them on its sleeve, like Munoz did with Lord of the Flies and Apocalypse Now and stuff, because there's no real acknowledgement of these other movies. You said there was something with The Shining, though. You felt that was very obvious.
The axe. The axe.
The axe. Okay. I felt the last scene of like our protagonist or our main character sort of not giving anything away, very similar to Shining and the lighthouse beacon, all that stuff. But anyway, I don't want to go ad nauseum. You said a lot in number 2. MJ, I really wish you enjoyed this more, man. I feel I wish you had enjoyed this more. That's all.
Well, look, I mean, the best way to describe this is on that poster right there. The lunatic dark comedy of cabin fever and machismo. That's pretty much what this movie is. It's a shame
it has
MJ
the best parts. It has
this.
the best parts of 12 amazing movies. And it doesn't feel like a ripoff on any of them. It feels like its own thing, and
No,
it
definitely does.
It's just absolutely mesmerizing. I was gripped from even.
Oh, thank God. I thought he was never going to shut up about the lighthouse.
You probably knocked out his internet, didn't you?
Oh, is that the mute button? Whoops. Moonbase. Hello, Moonbase.
Yes.
But if your number 1 is the right one, then we've got a shared number 1, so I'm interested to hear it.
Really?
Potentially.
Okay, well, look. There are a lot of fantastic films this year, and if you can't tell, I'm trying to buy a little time so Matt can get back. A lot of great films this year. Portrait of a Lady on Fire was excellent. One of the best made films of the year, without question. If this is the best of the list, probably top 5. Fantastic. There's some great underrated movies like Standoff at Sparrow Creek, or like we talked about earlier, Marriage Story. A lot of great movies. To me, sometimes this happens. It has happened on a few past year lists that we've done, where my best movie of the year, the movie I'd say is the best made movie of the year, mirrors my favorite movie of the year. Didn't happen last year. I wouldn't say Mandy was the best made movie of 2018. It's definitely my favorite. The best made movie of last year, I thought, in hindsight, was Burning, which was a South Korean movie.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, a South Korean movie is again the best and my favorite movie of 2019. Bong Joon-ho's Parasite. It was Matt's number 2. It's my number 1. I think it's MJ's number 1.
It is.
I think this is a masterpiece. I'll let you say your piece in a second, MJ. We can have a good old discussion about it. But I find it fascinating that like people who've only ever seen Snowpiercer and Okja have like jumped on this like, oh wow, this is amazing. It's like, well, Memories of Murder is still his best movie. That is a complete masterpiece without question. I loved Mother. I loved The Host. I even like Snowpiercer, and I think Okja is interesting. And Barking Dogs Lies really. I forgot the name of the title. Probably something in my brain. It doesn't matter. But Parasite is probably my second favorite Bong movie. I think it's, like I said, it's a masterpiece. I think it's all the stuff that Matt said earlier. It's a comedy. It's a drama. It's a thriller. Certain point in the movie, I felt like it could diverge into being a horror film, and I'd totally buy it. Because there was that certain point, about halfway through the film, where the movie takes a turn. It's a sharp turn, but you're like, that turn. In that moment, I thought this movie could go absolutely anywhere, and I'd buy it. Because it's just so brilliant. Like in terms of the construction of the script, the characters. Matt talked about, and obviously the heavy themes that this movie's dealing with are, social structure and the differential in economic stuff with the families of the poor family, the rich family. I thought that was beautifully shown, even if you strip everything away, by the cinematography. You see the way he frames certain things, and you see how characters enter shots, or it's characters either coming from the bottom up or from the top down, or like it's very, and how like the city is constructed, like they built that as a set, like how when they're coming back down to their house, like that's all a set, and then going back down into the slums, and how their house is constructed, and like how the rich house is constructed. It's all playing into the themes of the story. So to me, it's like this movie's perfect. He just thought everything out. It's so brilliantly constructed. on every single level. The acting and the performances are just like, and the characters are just so memorable and interesting. And Song Kang-ho, he is, I think, the best actor in the world. He's my favorite actor. He's never not great, even in bad movies. He's great. He's great here again. I thought, surprisingly, the standout was Cho Yo Jong, who plays the rich wife. I thought she was hilarious. I loved her, and I think I have no doubt she'll probably not get nominated for an Academy Award, but she should. She should probably win. I think she just played like this oblivious, naive, rich woman, and it was totally believable and not in a cartoony way. And I thought the daughter as well was brilliant comedically, especially like her and the rich wife had the two, for me, the two more comedic elements of the film. Park So Dam, I think, was the daughter's name. This movie is just terrific. There's a sequence in this, and I'm glad Matt didn't mention it, because if he did, I would have hit him. Towards like where that turn happens, and the rich family come home, and there's a sequence where Song Kang-ho is trying to hide, that was straight out of like a Blake Edwards comedy, like Pink Panther or A Shot in the Dark. Like, it was that brilliant in terms of the comedic, like how he structured the scene, how he moved the camera, how he had placement of like how he blocked the actors, how he executed the scene. That was just so funny and so well done. I think this is a masterpiece. It's definitely the best movie of the year. I got real no complaints about it. The only thing I can say is like maybe a quibble would be like, had the movie ended where the sun, I'm not going much of a spoiler, but when you see the light go off, right? If the movie just ended there, I would have been over the moon. Because I thought that would have been the place to end it. Nothing wrong with how the rest of it, the last couple of minutes after that, go on, but that's all I'd really have to say. Like, I don't know. I could go on about this movie forever, but I'll let you talk. But yeah, I love this movie. Best movie of the year.
Random thing I want to mention and talk about is I'm not sure if you call him like the main character. He's not the father character.
Kang-ho's character.
It always blows my mind because I always mix him up with Old Boy. And
What choice been sick?
yeah, like I feel like they just seem to do very similar projects, and they always seem to be these massive South Korean films that seem to
They're the best.
go beyond South Korea. They seem to get a lot of recognition.
Yeah.
Maybe not views, but critical recognition.
Yeah. For sure.
And it's always blows my mind, and I'm always like, I wonder if this guy's like Hollywood rich in South Korea, or is like, how well does the acting profession pay him?
Not enough. I don't care how much he gets. He doesn't get enough.
I always feel like he's such like a big figure in South Korean cinema from what I've seen. Because when I go through his filmography, I was like, seen it.
Yeah. He's
And like,
so much.
fuck, yeah. I was like, damn, I hope he's getting paid.
He's, like I said, man. This guy's the best actor. For me, he's the best actor in the world.
Damn.
I love him.
Again, I thought the film was pretty damn entertaining. I wish I could have gone in without even knowing anything about this film, because you start...
See, I did.
See,
I knew nothing. I just knew the title and I knew who made it. I was like, I'm in. I don't care. I don't want to read about it.
Yep.
Give it to me. I thought it was a horror film because I heard this Parasite. I'm like, oh, he's doing another horror film. Okay.
And you see like the poster, and you see like these black lines and stuff over the faces.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what's going on here? And then
Yeah.
I think I read like the tagline, and I was like, oh, fuck's sake. But it was still very satisfying to watch it play out, because I notice this a lot in films. Dialogue always seems to fucking play out. Like, especially when it's subtitled, because I'm now reading it. I'm like making a mental note that this is going to pay off. Where they say something about spoilers alert. Fucking, if you haven't seen the film, go see it. They say something about the housekeeper always eating a lot of food.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, mental note of that because it's going to come into play later, and obviously it fucking does. And it's just little things throughout where you're like, oh, how's this going to play? And I just loved how the family are just fucking taking advantage of these guys.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying with Matt, where he said it starts off slow, and I was like, I couldn't be more. I thought the start with all that stuff was hilarious. I was so entertained.
It's just, it is highly entertaining to see it. And 1 second, just gotta get it.
I guess it'd be like this. It's the only film I saw this year multiple times in theaters. I went down to Melbourne to visit a friend.
Yeah.
Who doesn't usually go watch these kind of things. I took him to see it, and even he really enjoyed it. And he didn't expect to. Even he's usually a guy you like go see a movie with. I'm like, what did you think? He goes, it was all right. And he was like, no, it's pretty good.
Damn.
Like, to me, pretty good from that guy is like, wow, this is like a 5-star movie.
Well, this is what I meant by November, because for me in November, I went to cinema 3 times, and I saw Ford vs. Ferrari, Jojo Rabbit, and Parasite. So I was like, damn, pretty damn good month for me, for my top 10.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I was lucky. I got to see this in July. And
wow.
It's still playing. It came out here in July.
Yeah.
It's still been playing, and then they re-released it again last month. So it's got a lot of legs, and apparently it's the most successful, I think, South Korean movie in US history now. Or equal, something like that. It's really close, first or second.
Can't blame it.
So I'm glad people are actually seeing it, and I'm glad that Australia, for once, got something before everyone else, because fuck all of you.
Well, I want to go into like the design of the house, because when I saw the design of the house, like, damn, where they shoot this? I want to live there. And it turns out that they actually designed the house themselves, and I was reading up about it, and they were saying stuff like, an architect wouldn't design it like this, but we designed it with the intention to fit the film. And I was like,
yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like, it fits so beautifully thematically with the story they're telling. Like, everything does.
I would legitimately.
I love that creepy shot of the eyes coming up from the staircase. You know what I'm talking about?
I can't.
You know what shot I'm talking about? Where it's the person who we see in the last half has been living there.
Yeah.
Someone who's living there that we didn't know, and he comes up from the staircase and he's like that mad look in his eye. You know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
I found that was like, wow, this is real. It's in the trailer. Because I watched the trailer after I watched the film, because I was like, how do they sell this? And then that shot's in the trailer. I'm like, okay. Because that was like straight out of a horror film.
Well, the ending.
Well, the scene where like as well, like the housekeeper comes back, and she's being very like vague. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, and she's like, come down here with me. Like, just follow me down here. I was like, don't go down there. Like, don't go down. I was like, this is going to turn into a horror movie at any point. Oh, it's so good.
It was just wild to see how things are playing out. You're thinking, are we going to get caught doing this? Are we going to get caught doing that? There's so many plates being spun. You're like, which one's going to drop first? Because as soon as the one drops, the rest are fucked. And you had the girlfriend, boyfriend kind of relationship going on. You had like the dad is like, was he gonna fucking put his foot in it eventually? Because he always seems to be tethering on that edge. And it's like the only ones who seem to have it kind of sewn up in a sense, where he's like, oh, you got this covered. Yep, was the daughter, who ironically is the one to get taken out. And the mother, I felt like I felt like the mother was kind of getting the job done. and never
Well,
felt.
she was seemed to be the one who was like she realized like, oh fuck it, I'll take care of the situation. Like she just got like frustrated with like, I'll take care of it. Like, you know what I mean? Like she
Yeah.
seemed like that kind of a person. We should like stand back for a minute and then be like, okay, I can take care of this. I got it. Like she had everything switched on.
But yeah,
It was great. I should have mentioned her too as being a great performance. She was fantastic.
I felt like some elements of the film was predictable, and you was waiting for it to happen because you was going to see how they were going to react. And other elements wasn't expected, but you could have guessed it if you would have allowed yourself to think of it, if that makes sense. Like the idea of someone being downstairs. If you thought like, where's that going? You think, oh fuck. And just all the shots that play into each other. Like, I'll post it on the fandom. I saw like this video essay of like the montage, 5 minutes in 50 shots.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they break it down. It's like, yeah, it's all pretty fucking well done, isn't it? Like, there's just a craftsmanship to the film, which is highly enjoyable. I feel like you never get these kind of films from Hollywood. It seems to be like a staple mark of Korean films or like Asian films. And they seem to try and end on a message, usually with like a voiceover, I feel. Maybe I'm just lumping it in with Oldboy because I always think of Oldboy and like ending voiceovers trying to be philosophical. But it always has like a kind of melancholic feel to it, and I'm not sure if that's part of the culture or not. But it feels like there can only be one, and the one person left standing is your boy MJ because Josh has lost his connection, Matt has lost his connection, and we're at number one, and I'm not even sure what I'm supposed to talk about anymore. So what I'm gonna do, we've got our boy back, we've got one of them back, just as I was about to wrap up the show because I didn't know what else to talk about anymore.
I mean, look, yeah, I'm here. So I was going to say, how do you compare this to the other Korean films you've seen? Like, do you rate it very highly? Like, obviously, it's your number one this year, but like compared to some of the other stuff you've
it's probably
seen.
quite. It's probably the more easily accessible film.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, if you're trying to show someone South Korean movies, I think this is like the perfect one to show someone. I think it's so entertaining. On every level, like it'll make you laugh, it'll thrill you, it keeps you engaged, and it's not like super artistic or weird or strange like Oldboy is. Like, I'd never show someone Oldboy if I was going to introduce them to Korean cinema because it's just too weird. But this, like, it's just so like, I think if you shot the exact same movie in English language, like people would eat the shit up. It's just the fact that it's Korean that some people might be like, I don't want to read subtitles.
This is what I always want to ask, because I always say it to like a friend of mine, because like friends from school got me more into like these Asian films, surprisingly enough. And I always said, sometimes can you get away with stuff in a foreign language that wouldn't work in the English language? So when these guys are saying lines, I can't understand what the fuck they're saying, but it sounds good and it reads good. But if you get like, if I understand their language in English and they're saying it, it's like, oh, that maybe just doesn't sound as good. Like, I can't tell what words they're enunciating, like the important words. Do you get what I mean? Like, actors might play with certain words or put certain pauses in, but I'm like, damn. You say that's why I can never gauge like the acting, because I can't. Their physical acting's well, their emotional acting's well, but I'm not sure what the words are, how they're saying them. And there's like a very specific style of filmmaking they have. Like, I was saying this whilst you guys were disappeared. I'm probably clicheing. It's a cliche I'm probably applying here, but I always feel like these films end with like a voiceover, saddish music, like melancholic feel, and
Yeah.
I always associate that with these type of films,
Yeah.
and
We kind of got that here again, didn't we?
yeah, and I was like, okay, maybe that's a specific thing, and does that translate well to American audiences? And when I watched these films, not American audiences to American film, when I watch these films, I buy it like this is the style they go for, and I'm into that. If I saw an American film like this, I'd be like, nah, it doesn't quite feel right. Maybe I'm not sure if it would. I'd have to see someone do it. And
I hope to God they don't remake this.
No, I hope they don't.
Will.
But I feel like it's not the
They
same
fucking will.
as getting the director to come make an English film. Because I'm not sure.
Well, Michael Haneke did that, didn't he? He did it with Funny Games. He directed the movie in whatever it was, Danish, and then fucking came back and redid the exact same movie in English. And it just didn't work as well.
And why do you think that is? Do you think that's the system? Like, does
It's
he have
just-
less control, or?
No, like, I think it's just cultural. Like, there are things that make sense culturally
Yeah.
in certain stories that are specific to a certain place.
Yeah. Like,
Well, I think this is very, like, timely for Korea right now, South Korea. But I feel like a lot of the world's in a similar place. I think the themes and the story, I think, are pretty universal, actually, in this one, compared to, like, some of the other South Korean stuff. So I think it'd be interesting. Don't get me wrong, there are things you'd have to change, probably, like, again, cultural differences. But, I don't know. I feel like this is a pretty universal story, and I think he did an excellent job. And I think there isn't a better directed film I've seen this year. I think this is the one.
well, this gets me to it. Like, when you're saying about remakes, I argued that with the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo film, I understood, like, the remake there. Because you saw, like, all the production values come up. With this film, I don't see what the benefit is other than it's in English.
Remake.
Like, because the
Yeah,
values
exactly.
are already there. It's already as good as it possibly could be.
Yeah.
I'm like,
flawless.
what the fuck do we need to
Flawlessly
do? It's fine. Well, more than fine. But I always think of this like, I said this about Attack on Titan, where they tried to do anime acting in that film. And I was like, what the fuck is going on here? So it's not even like they're doing like anime acting, but there's a certain expression that these actors have where it's I don't even know how to describe it, but it's almost like, oh no, you didn't kind of style, but like, do you get where I'm coming
Well,
from, where they have
a
that
lot of
kind of
the-
moments?
Well, the stuff that happens a lot in South Korean cinema and Asian cinema in general is if it's not all the way through the film, at a certain point in most, even really great Korean or Asian films, the film descends into over-the-top melodrama, like a big screaming, crying scene. And we didn't have that this time, really, which was nice.
I'm talking like, they're very expressive.
I get what you're...
It's
Yeah, they're very expressive. It's a different kind of acting than your Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or The Irishman.
and
or
that's
whatever.
what I
Like, it's
mean.
very
Like,
different.
they can do subtle things, but I appreciate like they're expressive to a point, and like there's no ambiguity there. Like, I get exactly what the fuck's going on here, instead of just having like a close-up, stern-looking shot. And it's like, oh, he's acting with his eyes. Like, is he? I'm like, are we sure? I just appreciate what's going on here. It's enjoyable. I look forward to seeing it again. The audience I saw it at the cinema was lapping it up. I can't think of anything negative off the top of my head. I would have almost said a pacing, but that's always my criticism of every fucking film. But I felt like just as the pacing was getting settled, they shift the paradigm, so it changes. So they change it up, change it up, change it up. So at first it's almost like a heist film in the sense that they've got to get into the bank.
Yeah, they're breaking into the house.
So it's like, oh, it's a heist film.
Breaking it. Well, technically, they're breaking into the family.
Yeah, and then once they've done that, it's like, oh, what's next? And they switch the paradigm. And it's about staying on top of things. And it's like, how can they maintain that? Because with a heist film, you get the cash and it's like, how'd you get out? Here it's like, how do we stay?
To me, it's like, again, like One Cut of the Dead, where there's such a big like switch, yet they stick it. You know what I mean? Like it's something where, like, I could say with the other movie on my list, In Fabric, where I don't know if it, like, the last third of it works, like when it makes a big shift. Where for me it kind of did, but like with Parasite and One Cut of the Dead, it makes this huge change, and it works. And it's one of those things where, like, it really is. These are movies that you should go into without knowing anything and just watch.
I did want to gather, like, the stone. Like, I remember watching this film. It's like, he is linked to the stone, and that stone supposedly being, it will bring your family wealth or fortune or something like that, and look after it. And it's ironically what gets him fucking beaten over the head. And I want to find out, okay, what's the message about this? Because I feel like I have it, and then I might be missing something, because I'm not sure of, like, how important that is to the culture. Like, if it symbolizes something more, is it hokey pokey? Like, you know,
They believe in a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, it was very fascinating. I like getting these type of films, and the ending is like, fuck it, and he just knifes him. And I saw the ending of him living in the house coming as well, because what the film does, it gives you the structure of the house, so you know where the house leads. So if I went to this fucking house set, I know if I go up these stairs or if I go through the garage, I can get wherever I need to get to. Because do you get what I mean? Where you've got a good sense of the place of where it connects to people, so you know it's like, oh, there's only one set of stairs here or there, and everything. If I get loads of fuck money, I'm gonna build that house. It's such a stunning design. And
I loved it.
The best thing about it, you have this, like, private feeling, because it seems very cut off from everything else.
Except if you're in that backyard. Look straight in.
Oh well. But as we call up to
one of the. Well, I was going to say one last thing. With the rich husband and wife on the couch, and looking at their son on the lawn of the tent. That's one of the funniest scenes.
I was like,
oh wow, we're going here now.
Yeah. It was like, damn, they're getting it on.
And then they're just all, like, underneath the table. It's so silly.
It's like, good sound effects. But yeah, we're approaching our 4th hour of the show, which we hope you enjoy. I'd like to get some closing.
I like that we started off with the idea that this is going to be an hour and a half.
Yeah.
We're at 4 hours.
Well, I just wanted to get some closing words from Matt.
Matt, closing thoughts.
I missed the number ones. What are your number ones quickly?
Parasite and Parasite.
Beautiful. All right.
So we know what's winning the Fandome Best Film of the Year award.
Parasite wins the Domer Movie of the Year. That's awesome.
The Domer.
That's, you know what's funny? We didn't have many similarities on our list, but where we did I guess it came together at the top,
Well,
which is awesome.
me and Matt pulled a me and MJ from 2014, actually, where my number one was Birdman, my number two was Grand Budapest, and his number two was Birdman, and his number one was Grand Budapest. And then you and me did it with Lighthouse and Parasite this year. So we're so in tune, you see.
Yeah, to listen back on your views on Parasite, then my damn internet killed me. Yeah, it was great. I think this is one of the best years of movies. I was saying to Josh earlier, I think it was yesterday, we were chatting about what we thought about the field of movies this year, and I thought this is probably was the hardest to choose the best and what was on the list because there was so much good, and there was so much I still didn't see.
Is there anything that you didn't see, both of you, that you wish you had seen that may have made your top 10? Because my two were probably Pain and Glory and 1917. I didn't get a chance to see those two. I would have liked to have seen those.
Yeah, there's a couple. There's I know how you feel about Terrence Malick, Josh, but if I had seen A Hidden Life,
fuck that motherfucker.
Maybe. Yeah, I know. Yeah, you hate him. But
I would have liked to see Transit. That... You just reminded me. I would have liked to see Transit as well.
Oh yeah, Transit. Yeah.
Transit. Yeah.
Is there anything else really I didn't see that I wanted to watch? Yeah, Nightingale. Like I said, the internet cut out on me, like it did during this damn bar. I was teasing you for that, and then my fucking end. But yeah, that probably might have made it on there. And then the other thing I took away from this year was all these ones that just edged out upside. All these honorable mention ones like Laundromat and 1917. I was really confused about. I mean, 1917 was a spectacle, and I thought, I don't know. There's a lot of outside.
I thought this year as well. This year was pretty good for animated movies. I thought, obviously, I said Dragon Ball Super would be in my top 10 if I was doing animated films. I Lost My Body. I thought was fantastic. It's probably the best animated film of the year. Toy Story 4 didn't shit the bed. I like Shinkai, the guy who made Your Name. He made a new movie called Weathering with You, which was really good. So there were some good animated movies this year.
Yeah, I Lost My Body. I got halfway through actually. I didn't see it all, so maybe
so good.
Yeah, so very good.
I mean,
we're gonna have to do a Parasite. I can't believe I missed that last half hour, but we got to have a Parasite episode now.
We covered it.
We just did.
No, we've covered it.
Oh, you guys did? We covered spoilers? Oh, damn it.
Well, a little bit.
I was like,
MJ, what would you have liked to see?
I probably
that you didn't get to see.
Well, I had a fucking list as well. Let me check my other list because for me, 1917 is the one getting a lot of buzz, but I have a feeling it wouldn't have made my top 10. I feel like it would just be I'll be like, oh yeah, be like Ad Astra. I'll really appreciate the filmmaking, but not like it. But I'll be seeing it Thursday, so I'll see.
Well, it is a ride. It is a ride, but for me, it reeks too much of Nolan and Dunkirk.
Oh, and that was my fear as well.
Oh, don't say that.
No, it's
what I'm worried about.
Yeah, but
well, I wanted to check out Sparrow Creek, Dolomite, and probably I'll check out Light of My Life, Manos, The Report, just to see those, and probably Starfish, Les, and In Fabric. If I don't like them, I'll see them, but at least it's something, I always find it a struggle.
We'll do a retrospective in a month.
Well,
in a month we'll come back and go...
Well, this is always my problem. I see a lot of top 10 lists, and I always feel like they're the same shit over and over again. So I like it when we do something, because it's like, oh, he likes The Report, Josh didn't, so I'll watch that. This is basically going to be my January and February films, which is good, because January and February are notoriously not great for films. Yeah. So it's a nice little snack to get me through. So I'll be checking those out. In regards to 1917, I've just got no interest for it. All I keep hearing is, oh, it's got this amazing tracking shot by Roger Deakins. Is that it?
Deakins.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing is disguised as the whole movie is one shot, disguised as one shot. There is not a break in the whole thing. The whole thing is one shot.
I can imagine Sam Mendes just went to Deakins and was like, yeah, you remember when Birdman took that Oscar from you? This is your revenge, pal.
Yeah.
Well,
That's,
I mean,
that's all it would have taken.
I was gonna put in there just for props for the choreographing the fucking thing and the sets, because these sets I would have loved to see aerial views of them, because they just stretch for like miles, because it is, I know it's masked as one shot, but it just goes on, and the sets they had to build through these fields and across rivers and into underground into caves is just insane.
but this is the
The
thing.
effort was worth mention. So
I felt like if they hadn't have marketed it like Dunkirk, I'd have probably cared more. But
it's so much like Dunkirk. It's
when I
ridiculous.
saw the poster design, and it's like, you're using the words with like,
Same font.
yeah, it just looks like the Dunkirk poster and marketing designs. And then I saw the trailer, and it's like, it's the Dunkirk trailer.
I gotta be honest, it's a completely different war, and it's a completely different battle, obviously, but it feels like a 2.0. I think all I could think of, and the score especially, you're gonna hear the score, and it's like, oh, this is a Hans Zimmer Nolan joint about war, and it's coming off the heels of Dunkirk. It's too. I got yanked out. You know what I always say? I get yanked out. I get distracted. I can't like the de-aging CGI. I could not get my mind off the fact that it's like, this is reeking of Nolan, and
The one thing I'm looking forward to on our Best of 2020 show, I'm looking forward to Matt saying like, oh, this new barbershop or some other new phrase. It's like, this year's been like, oh, the new joint from this guy. From that
Noticed
guy.
I stopped doing that as I started to not remember what the production company was. Once you get to the top 5, I didn't know what joint it was, so that stopped. Sorry. I can't believe I missed the Parasite fucking talk. God damn it. God, I had so much to say.
I think we've had plenty to say, considering we've had 4 hours.
This was a good lean 4 hours. This was good.
Wait until you listen back to this, because you wasn't the only one who had technical problems. Like, it got to the point where Josh disappeared as well. I was like, I have no clue what to say right now. I guess I'm supposed to just close the show because I'm the only one around. And when Josh came back, it's like, oh, thank God. Patch him back in.
Professional. I don't know what the fuck happened. I think Alex is out there, like,
he's trying
hacking
Alex
the
doing?
servers.
He's trying to hack our servers, destroy
Was he
our
really?
views.
It was that
He's
Death
burning
Proof joke,
Australian
wasn't it, Alex?
wildlife.
It was that death
I-
joke, wasn't it, Alex? I'm sorry, dude.
You know what? Is he? Wait. Is he in the comments right now? Is he?
No.
He's listening somewhere.
No. Oh.
He told
He will.
me he was tuning in tonight. This is live on
Really?
YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I would have liked to have heard Alex's top 10 list, but he refused. I asked him several times. But I have another question. Well, 2 questions for you both. What do you think's the most underrated film of the year, and what is the most overrated film of the year?
Okay, most overrated.
And
film
I guess,
of the year.
and then throw another one in. The worst film you saw this year.
Okay, most overrated film of the year for me is. Oh, it's a toss-up. I can't help but put Once Upon a Time in there. I know that sounds rough on it.
That's mine. That's mine too.
Yeah,
I mean, that's my answer.
Yeah, it didn't age well for me in the time we talked about it. We talked about it a couple months ago, right, or whatever.
Have you watched it again, then?
I watched it again. Yeah, it didn't. It was.
Because I bought the DVD. I bought the DVD because I'm a completionist, because I have all the other Tarantino stuff, so I was like, alright, I'll just get it. Didn't get it on Blu-ray, got it on DVD. But, and I watched, like, the other scenes that were on it, and I was like, these wouldn't... I don't even know where they'd fit in to make sense. But then I watched, like, the first, like, half hour, and I was like, I just have the same problems with this that I did the first time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I had problems the first time, and then the second time it didn't improve. Which most Tarantino movies, you can go back and notice things.
Get
That
better.
was true of this too. but it wasn't in a good way. It's a boring ass movie. Nothing happens. I realized.
What?
Like more and more I watch it, it's like nothing happens in this goddamn movie.
He just tries to trick you at the end with such a great ending.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
I was like, oh, just give me that as like a 20-minute short film and we're good.
Yeah.
The most underrated movie I think of the year is The King. I put it in my top 10.
Okay.
I think it's nothing new in terms of what it is. It's a medieval epic, but it is so awesome.
Yeah.
It's so awesome. I think
Like-
Josh or MJ, you put it at 4 or 5.
I think it was 6. I know I didn't
Okay,
get to speak
I
too
put
much
it at
about
10.
it.
I put it 10. Robert Pattinson's performance, man, unbelievable. It's so good. And the young actor's name, I had it written down. I forgot now.
You mean Robert
He's
Pattinson
great.
playing the Dark Knight?
Yeah, Robert Pattinson is Batman.
See, for me, the standout was Joel Edgerton, and when you see his involvement in the film, like, he's so versatile in what he can do.
I didn't realize he wrote it. Or at least
Like,
that was awesome.
he's so involved.
He's quite a talented writer, to be fair. He's written a lot of movies that are actually quite good. Like,
yeah.
I think him and his brother made The Square. I know I think he wrote Animal Kingdom. Did he write that movie with him and Jason Bateman? I think he did. The one, what's the name of it? Fuck. Forgot the name
Jason
of it.
Bateman?
It was really good.
Yeah, The Gift.
Jason, The Gift, that's it. Yeah, that was really good. That's an underrated movie. He's a really talented writer. I need to
guys
see
like
this movie, I guess.
You guys want Parasite was your number 1, so that's awesome. You have to
It is.
Movie
My,
of the Year 2019. Go on, what was yours, Josh?
Underrated, I think. Most overrated, definitely Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Most underrated, I think, Nightingale, just because it's not getting enough love. But I'd say one I didn't have it on my list is The Standoff at Sparrow Creek, which is a great crime thriller. And if the ending's not bad, it's just that there's an expositional scene at the very end which just was not needed and really dropped this, because otherwise it probably would have made my top 10, like bottom half of it. But and I've heard there's people who are part of militias that have problems with the movie and say it's not accurate and stuff, which I have no idea about that. I just watched the movie. But I just thought it for what it is, like a stripped down little crime thriller, basically set in one location. I was like, this is really fucking good. It's just the ending really bothered me. Of like, I don't need you to explain this to me. I know, I get it. It was a bit like that movie from a few years ago, the one with Michael Shannon, 99 Homes, where the very last 5 minutes ruined everything before it. And I'm like, why?
What was the Mel Gibson
most
movie
hated
again?
movie, Dragged Across Concrete.
Yeah, that's the one I want to watch the most.
That's underrated too.
Yeah.
That's underrated. My most hated is probably the Batman Hush, the animated movie, or Captain Marvel. I didn't see. I avoided like trash like Rise of Skywalker and Terminator and all that other shit.
Yeah, Terminator.
So I didn't see that stuff.
was even it. Yeah, me neither.
I'm surprised it didn't make MJ's top 10.
What's your most overrated, MJ?
The Lighthouse.
Oh my god, man. Dude,
What about underrated, MJ?
I could probably agree with Matt on that one. Where it was
what about
The King.
What about the worst?
The worst.
Oh, I didn't answer that one, did I? Yeah, the worst.
You answer that one, because for me it's probably The Lighthouse or some other film.
The worst?
Josh, you
Because
can help me out here.
See, this is what I
think
mean.
It's the best.
Because I got zero enjoyment from it. I was like, when's this end? It just didn't do anything for me.
But were you curious to
I don't
know,
think
like,
you could say...
What was...
I don't think you could say subjectively that it's the worst. Like, there's too many good elements about it. You just didn't like it because of your taste.
No,
I don't think you can say
would
it's the worst.
it's the worst for me that I've seen. It's not like
Shit, man.
I don't know how to describe it. So,
Josh,
say if I've seen
what's
Rise of
happening?
Skywalker, I had moments in that film where I enjoyed it more. But for
Put up a photo of Rise of Skywalker right now.
whilst for
Where's
The
Taylor?
Lighthouse, I just didn't enjoy anything about it. The performances I didn't enjoy. I didn't, because it felt all like wasted pieces. I was like, you've got all of this, and I feel like it's all going to waste. And it just
What
didn't
does
do
that
it for
mean?
me. Basically,
It's so crazy that we can disagree on Lighthouse so much and agree on Parasite.
yeah.
That's wild. But,
Yeah, but see, like I could just
The
knowing
worst.
MJ for the amount of years I've known, it's not fully surprising that he hates the Lighthouse.
No,
He hated so many things like
Lighthouse-
that. I'm just like, yeah, it's just not MJ's
Lighthouse
taste.
is the worst. Like, what about Terminator or fucking Captain Marvel or something?
I didn't see Captain Marvel.
Okay, but I gotta go through what you watched because the worst. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Even
about you,
Terminator, I was
Josh?
like, there's some okay stuff in it. Like, I could watch it. I wouldn't be like going to watch it again. But if you had to give me a choice
So,
of the Terminator or Lighthouse, I was gonna pick a Terminator.
Oh my god. What's your worst movie, Matt?
Worst I've seen this year. I might need a second to think about that, Josh. If you know, just give me a second. I still gotta think. I'll
I mean,
have
if
it.
you saw
have all
Batman Hush,
no,
Did
but I
you see
know
that?
exactly. No, DC animated. No, but I didn't see it. But I know what it is.
what?
Question:
A
is
piece
Batman
of
Hush
shit.
the one with Batgirl?
Hush?
Batman boning.
No, that's
Is that
Killing Joke.
That is fucking trash, man. I need to speak about DC animated films. So, in regards to
How long is
these
this show gonna go
fuckboys-
for? Right?
5 more minutes
Oh,
at least. In regards to those little fuckboys, how do they start from so good to absolute trash? Like, when I used to see like these new DC animated films, I was like, excellent, these guys are fucking nailing it. And now I'm like, why are you adding on trash to these fucking stories?
Did you see Batman Ninja?
Nope, skip that. I was like,
Yes,
this sounds
the-
fucking
see that.
goofy.
It's like, because I love the idea of like, it's like setting Batman in feudal Japan. The animation style looked awesome. I was like, I'm in. Bought that sucker on Blu-ray. I was like, this is gonna be good. And it was one of the worst pieces of shit I've ever seen in my life. What
Okay,
a
I think I.
disappointment. They've
think I-
shit the bed, man.
Yeah, DC animated.
Because
Yeah,
I've
they had
heard
a
they're
little-
doing Long
they just
Halloween
released-
soon. I'm like,
Stay away.
oh, they're gonna
Well,
ruin
yeah.
that.
Oh, they're doing
Like,
all the classic
God.
ones. Yeah, I saw
They're
the
gonna
Reign of
ruin it. What are they gonna
Superman.
put in Long Halloween?
The Reign of Superman wasn't good. That one, and you know what they're releasing next is Superman Red Son,
Mhm.
Soviet.
Well, the
Soviet
weird
raised
thing is
Superman.
like they released like the death of Superman, and something else which is just the same storyline like a year apart. It was really weird. I was like, so wait, which is
Oh, mate.
there any
Don't
difference?
get me started on some of this, because sometimes I feel like we're just getting rehashes of the same stuff. And I'm like,
Yeah.
is this like based on the comic, or is this interpreting that comic storyline to fit into your Final Crisis rewritten animated universe now?
Let me
'Cause
tell you.
the main problems seem to occur where they did. Was it Flashpoint?
Yeah,
The Flash.
I liked that one.
I really liked the film, but because of that film,
Yeah.
they seem to follow that story structure from then on, and that's where it seemed to fuck it.
Yeah. You're actually not wrong there. I mean, Batman
I-
Hush is just as bad as any. I'm telling you that right now.
Damn.
Don't watch it.
I have a tie
trash.
for my worst movie. I've decided it's Lion King and
You
Gemini
watched
Man.
it? Why?
Gemini Man.
Why would you watch
Because-
either of these?
Because I have a 4-year-old
Why?
son. I have a 4-year-old.
You wanted to
son
see Gemini Man.
You know it's bad
Wanted to
when
see-
you know it's bad
No,
when
he
Mr.
went to-
Terminator's throwing stones at you. You know.
He went to Gemini Man. Me and the wife went to Lion King. Those Lion King was fucking horrible. And don't tell me that Lion King wasn't hyped either. Like, the marketing they had behind that fucking movie is insane. And Gemini Man, Will Smith is officially just... It's time to hang it up, Will, a little bit.
I will give it to Will
Slick
Smith,
Wilbur.
though. From what I've heard, apparently he's a really nice guy on set, so that's nice to hear. Like, well, what that's
Must
worth.
mean he's a cunt
Give
in
me
real
a-
life then.
Do you remember...
He's probably a huge cunt.
Christian Bale.
Christian Bale. Give me a fucking answer. Just leasing into some lighting tech.
Shane Hilbert.
10 feet off the set.
To be fair, he was working with fucking McGee. He was probably on edge.
I think he saw the dailies of that
MJ's
movie and
hero. It's like, fuck this.
I love how he played it just like Batman with his costume on.
No,
Like the
it's...
Let's
voice
leave on
and everything.
One sec. That,
Should we leave on a positive note?
yeah, we will. Just 2 seconds.
You started this.
What I loved about that Christian Bale rap was where his voice kept slipping between British and American. Like,
Yes.
it was fucking him up so
Oh,
bad
yeah.
he couldn't figure out which one he wants to be.
Ooh, you just brought up...
One of
you just
my
brought up
favorite,
what?
quotes is in that rant, and I always use it. Is fucking ass.
Is that what he says in it?
So mad.
Does he
Where
say
he's like,
that
yeah,
in
he
the
goes-
rant?
He just goes. At a certain point, he just goes silent for like a second or two, and he goes fucking ass.
Sometimes I have a problem with his accent in a lot of movies. Like, Batman is sort of an example of that, but the what do you call it? What's the Mickey Ward fighter movie? The Fighter. I had a few
Fighter.
issues with his voice.
What's that
in a few
movie about the
scenes in that.
fighter?
Yeah, what's
Fighter?
that fighting movie about fighting? Yeah, his
Fighter.
accent disappears in a couple scenes, and that bothers me. It sounds like you complained about in Ford versus Ferrari as well.
No, the problem with
Did you
that
listen
was...
to when we were?
I was cutting out, Josh.
was
The
it-
entire fucking
when it
time.
wasn't
The
your
only time my internet worked was when I was actually supposed to talk somehow, which is awesome. But
It was
That's
like-
amazing. I actually think.
I know.
I reckon you didn't have problems with internet. I think you just weren't interested in anyone else
Yeah.
than yours.
It's like,
I only
I've
wanna
said
hear
my
my own
number
voice.
one, I'm done.
I'm out. That's what I actually thought. Well, like, oh, he's bailed. He said he's won. He's left.
Are we still recording?
Yes.
This
So
is going to be a
God.
5
let's wrap this up, man. Let's wrap this up. What was your closing line, Josh?
fucking ass.
A closing line.
Yeah, I thought you
Fucking
were...
ass.
There you go. That's Josh's final line. Matt,
She has been
2019?
fucking ass.
only 6 days in.
2019?
2019 was fucking ass as well.
Fucking
And
ass.
my final line of the podcast is going to be fucking amateurs.
The Domer Awards coming soon. I don't even know who won the Golden Globes.
I know, I was trying to look that up.
Hey, man,
I
if
don't care
that's,
either.
if that's for going forward, before we close out, if that's the way we decided, the highest rated, common movie
No,
on
no,
the list or
no.
for list, I think that's great. I'm proud of the choice this year. Parasite's amazing. It
Yeah.
deserves the best.
I think we've got 3 pretty good, diverse, interesting lists. I was actually surprised, especially by you, Matt. I thought you were going to have Rise of Skywalker 10-1.
I was trying. Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
maybe
MJ
Terminator
based-
Dark Fate in number 10. But
MJ couldn't wait to give away my number one to everyone. I was stunned at how he just threw my element of surprise under the bus.
Because-
it sounded like you were throwing
Well-
him under the bus.
Yeah,
He
I was like,
was.
he's going to try and
He
switch
was.
this up on me.
Well, I hated Lighthouse. I'll let Matt talk about it because there's only one movie left for him, and he'll. Or whatever. It was good.
Oh, jeez.
And it was your number 2, Josh. So
Anyway.
we're right up there.
Yeah, well, anyway, like we said, fucking ass.
Is this the longest podcast since the Clash of Kings 3-parter?